Never happened to.
Speaking of being live, we are live right now. Yeah, I do. Sometimes I'll look at something and be like, oh yeah, I'm live right now. Or see somebody respond in Discord and be like, what? What's happening? I'm live. As you can see, guys, gals, everybody, we are currently with just Johnny and I. That's because we leapt forward in time. Only on the Pacific Northwest does that happen. I'm just joking. Happens all across America, but we got hit on the podcast where we jumped forward. And as always, I forgot to tell these guys, I didn't actually remember myself until I think Thursday. So we are waiting for, at minimum, Silver, who said he's for sure coming, and we're trying to reach out to Abzy.
By the way, proof that the Earth is not flat. If you needed that right there, chat.
Yeah,
there you go.
There you go. Dude, I don't know if proof and flat earthers are even a thing, right? Like, when you get to that point, when you're like, if somebody says, show me proof, you're all,
to me.
Yeah, no, I don't think I will.
All
I
right.
don't think we're going to have any discussion actually right now. But yeah, so Johnny and I will be holding this end of the fort up until those guys arrive. And if they don't, it's completely fine because, like I said, we change and those guys are already ahead of us. And Silver says he's here. So I can send him an invite real quick, and we'll get him up and running. All right. He says he's ready. Let me do a invite to him.
How's everybody in chat today? Popping
and stopping. Locking, dropping, popping, stopping. Absolutely rocking. Popping, stopping, and locking. What are some other names for like those games? You have like pop and stop. You have shooter. Like you Gears of War, sort of like that. Pop and stop. Run and gun. What are some of the other? We need to come
run
up
and
with
gun.
More. Run and gun. Yeah. I mean, like people use boomer shooter, but it doesn't work because it means
slice and dice.
It doesn't mean anything really. Slice and dice, but they're both the same thing. Slice and dice. They're both cuts. So like one has to be movement, right? So sprint and slice.
Smack
slice
and
sprint.
Whack.
Smack and whack are the same thing. One has to be movement.
They're like different flavors. They're different. Okay, fair.
You're all sweet and sour. It's like one has to be sound and one has to be taste. No, just what's up, Silver?
Hey.
That went off the rails really quick. Yeah. No, it's just like whenever I hear people. So one of the ones is boomer shooter, but it doesn't really work because it's like a lot of people think of it as booming, boom. Big explosions, but a lot of games have that. Other people think it's boomer, but then don't even know what a boomer is. And then,
I mean, a lot of people collate boomers with Gen Xers. So
right. So it doesn't really.
Literally
we gotta come
anyone above like 25.
Anybody
years
above
old.
12 is a boomer suddenly. As every single emo kid is like, I'm my own person. It's like, yeah, you are like everybody else. We need to come up with an like boom and bound. Boom and bound would work. Sounds a little dumb, though. Bound and boom. Nope, sounds dumb. Something about movement and explosions. Let's see.
Towing and blowing.
Retro shooters.
Towing and blowing works. Towing and blowing works. It sounds dirty. But towing and blowing works. I sort of dig that, man.
It's a bit dicey.
Yeah. Tear ass and... No, that doesn't work. That sounds... I use it in the reviews, but like I don't know if I want to. I want to randomly be dropping that. What were you saying, Silver? Sorry, we're randomly talking.
Retro shooters work well enough for me.
Yeah, I was talking more along the lines just catchy. Whenever we're talking about,
we need a catchphrase type thing for.
I fully agree that like for whatever you're trying. Rip and tear, but those are both again hitting something. Nathan says,
"Isn't
blow
it
and
funny?
go.
Those are all the same thing." Okay,
I know everybody's doing the same thing, like smash and punch.
Yeah,
and
but blow and go is way over the line. That one is definitely risque.
That's the problem. I think the word explosion, spray and pray works. I've always thought, but pray still has the idea of sitting back. So yeah, spray and pray. Strafe and spray are sort of sound the same, but I think that one works. That one's a good one.
All right.
That's what are some other good ones?
Bunny hopper.
And then we all that's what we said earlier. We had pop and stop.
Yeah,
which definitely is a thing. Pop and hop, pop and stop is definitely a thing. But whenever I'm describing games to people, a lot of times, even in Discord, somebody will say it's this, and everybody else will be, "Oh, what the fuck does that even mean? What does that mean?"
Have when you say like a Pringles game, Because do you have the saying of like once you go pop, you don't stop or something, or once it goes pop?
Once it goes pop. But what do you mean? Do we have the Pringles game? I don't know what that means. That sounds dirty.
For Pringles, there's the advert that says like once it goes pop,
right?
There's no stop or something. I don't know. I don't know the translation exactly. You guys don't have that?
Saying, no, we've got. You mean the same? Yeah, it's Pringles does the same.
Yeah, so the Pringles game is just like a game where once you put it on, you don't.
You mean stealing Pringles tagline for a game?
Yeah, like using it as a.
Yeah. By the way, I can still hear my voice in your headset, Johnny.
All right, let me.
Them open backs with their amazing, incredible audio are giving him hell. So, sorry, we went off the rails there. It's me, it's Silver, and it's Johnny. Best Gaming Podcast. Thank you, everybody, for joining up. We're going to get this thing started. If you guys have any other ideas for names that are like a little bit of a genre name for shooters that don't follow the same, where it's difficult to understand what somebody means when they say it. I'm sort of looking for something that's a little bit more straightforward. And, like we were saying, boomer shooter just sort of comes across like, I don't know. It sort of loses people, I think, because they get so caught up in the boomer mentality and stuff like that. So
or it looks like anti-boomer mentality.
Or anti-boomer mentality, dude. I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah. People are talking about Dragon's Dogma. They're talking about Rise of the Ronin. Man, there's a lot of people look like they're going to get both of those. Frankie Donuts, member for 2 months. He says, happy I stumbled in here a few months back. Gained a bunch of great gaming pals. For new peeps, get in here, like, subscribe, and get connected in the Discord. Yeah, thanks for jumping in the Discord. It's been awesome sitting down and talking to you for a while. It's always enjoyable to talk to people who have somewhat the same game likes, but then they'll mention a game or two that you weren't expecting, and he's always playing some game I wasn't expecting, including, I think, prior to Stalker releasing, he was playing it. One of them was. D Flexen, $10 super chat. You think I'll be okay buying Dragon's Dogma 2 for Xbox? I only bought it for Xbox so I can save memory on my PS5. I'm picking a wrong console performance-wise. No, I think both consoles are unlocked 30. Basically 30 and above, right? They're not locked at anything. Right. So prepare yourself. Prepare yourself. Prepare yourself. Karak, would you ever think about starting to stream some games, maybe on a second channel? No. Not at all. Thanks for asking, though. But it will never happen. When I stream, I do it. I stream all the time in the Discord, the patron Discord. It works for me better. It's just more enjoyable. And that's where I'm sticking. Ada says, do you set your PS5 audio to LPCM, Dolby, or Atmos? I set it to all of them when I test. Would I normally play? Well, depends on where I'm playing. What do you guys set yours at? Stereo? And just go with it? Or headphones? Or
headphones, generally.
Do you even jump into your PS5 or Xbox's audio settings and mess around with those? Or do you just let it ride?
I tend to just go with default.
I think most people do. Let's see. Pop and stop. We're still getting more pop and stop. My life is a boomer.
I think going into the settings just sort of, it presents another like obstacle or gate or whatever that I have to get through. And I have to get through so many in daily routines that it's just easier just to go.
Just want to play a game.
Yeah.
Even if like the audio is just slightly, and I do mean slightly, it's like slightly off. You're all whatever. I can deal with this.
I mean, if it's off to the point that I notice it, then I tend to do something. But most often, I don't really notice it.
I get that. Let's see. JS, what? Dragon's Dogma is locked at 30? Uh-oh. Somebody say that? I didn't say that. As far as I know,
said
it's
unlocked.
As far as I know, it's unlocked at 30, and it just
for consoles.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Which sort of sucks as a way of describing things, because whenever you say, so if you say something that's locked at 60, that means it should be 60 all the time. If something says its target is 60, well, that means its target is 60. Then you hear uncapped 30, and your brain thinks that means 30. But then it can go higher. But that's not what it means. It just, it really means target 30.
What I heard confirmation for was the PC version was uncapped. I haven't heard anything at all about the console versions.
Well, let me check. Why? You mean uncapped on the PC? It better not be capped. That would be odd to be capped on the
It's
PC,
uncapped.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we've seen Dark Souls 3 be capped at 60 because they had an animation
uncapped
thing tied to it.
uncapped 30 is what they're saying for Dragon's Dogma 2.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
basically not stopping at 30, but maybe not getting to 30. You can, are you stopping at 30 if you don't make it to 30? No. Unlocked worries me because that probably means sub 30. Hey, anything that doesn't mean locked means not locked. I mean, that's just the way it is these days, right? How many have we got games that stated they were locked at 30 and they are locked at 30? I feel like there's been a couple where they're all, we've locked it at 30, and when you count the frames, when you look at the videos, they are pretty solid at 30. It happens. It happens. But I think lately,
especially cinematic games, the want to go for this thick movie style, or film,
or maybe a
emulate
platformer
film.
where they sort of know exactly what they're getting on the screen and stuff like that. That's absolutely right. Yeah. Uncapped, unlocked. Slapshock says, yeah, pretty much exactly that. So, moving on from there, we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about. We've got Rise of the Ronins previews came out. I am going to talk about my thoughts on Rise of the Ronin here in the podcast. We also got Outcast's reviews, some more Dragon's Dogma 2 talk. Again, we won't spoil anything. We'll just be talking around some of the information that's going on about it and what we may see. I want to talk about Starfield Battlefront 2 and 1, the remake's disastrous launch. That thing has been all over the place. Have you guys seen that? We can start with that. Have you guys seen the reports?
I haven't seen it.
No.
So basically, it started out with only 3 servers that were 64 and above, and there were thousands of people trying to play. So that was like,
that I did hear.
Yeah, that was like an instant issue. Let's get. I don't care about the size thing. That's like, I mean, the reason why a game's big has been explained so many thousands of times that's beyond the pale now. But when it comes to performance-wise, it's got issues with performance. It's got bugs, crashes, disconnects. 364-person servers only, which appear to have been upped as of last night. And so anybody who's playing that, if you want to tell me what you're seeing currently, I saw another website do a little blurb on this, and they stated that apparently they did add more servers in the last, let's say, 14 hours. But it's just been all over the place, man. And I don't know about you guys, but when I see Aspire show up in the name of anything, it just doesn't, you don't get that confidence that it's going to launch.
It's also just really sad to see how much of a fluke the Command & Conquer remaster really was, apparently.
And maybe Tomb Raider, right? Were they a good one? The Tomb Raider ones
I
that came out?
haven't tried the Tomb Raider remasters, so I can't really speak to those.
Okay. I think John from DF covered them. I saw little bits of it, and I'm pretty sure what I saw, that one was also pretty good. So 2 out of many.
But those weren't.
I thought they were Aspire. Oh, they weren't.
Or they may have been Aspire. That I don't know.
Yeah. But looking here at some of the news on this, just looks like people are having a ton of problems connecting. I'd like to know what anybody in the chat has. They've had issues with the game not running, not installing, which is a weird one. I don't even know what happens when a game does. What do you do? Try to install and it just sits there? I guess on a console, maybe there's something where it thinks you've used that space
during the process somehow, and you'll have to start over.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Like the old days, the CD number 3, insert CD number 3, and you're like,
the words trying and install shouldn't go together, because it should be pretty much, like.
Yep.
That's a really good way of putting it.
Always work.
So here's what's doubly weird about this. I just want to point this out. And I don't mean doubly weird to cast any kind of doubt on any of these. That's not what this is about. I just want to say that currently the review aggregate is actually 81%. It's very high, but I think it's actually very negative on Steam. So sort of the opposite of what we saw with, let's say, Suicide Squad or something, where you're getting those dramatically different things. And I'm wondering if maybe those people who reviewed it, it just wasn't busy. They didn't think to themselves that, hey, there's only 3 64-person servers or what have, and it was working, and that's just sort of what they went with. But It looks like there's been all kinds of problems with it. So
Yeah.
sad to see, man.
Unfortunate.
Hopefully it gets fixed. Yeah, because that one I would have played, to be honest. I would have played. Like with just everybody in chat, just jump in and what is it? It's not super expensive, I don't think. It's probably only well, I say that now. I've been blown away by some of the prices.
EA Play, right?
Oh, they do.
So you can play that?
Yeah. They have the little
or even
EA
like Game
Play.
Pass, isn't it? Like Game Pass has a certain, I don't know if all
Sailor
EA
says
Play-
$35.
negative. We just gave an example of them being overly positive. What did you say? $45?
It's $35 for the classic
$35.
collection.
Not bad for both. As a remake, I get that not much was touched. They probably cleaned up some audio, maybe, ran it through some filters and stuff like that. So that's a good amount of money though.
I think it's up there for like a remastered collection of 20-year-old games.
Yeah. Yeah, that does seem high. But I can totally understand that if people weren't thinking about it and you're reviewing it, you're touching it, and you just look at it and you're like, okay, it's working, it's playing, and then not realizing when 10,000 people try to play. If you have 3 64-man servers, the math doesn't work. It's the world's worst gangbang. Somebody's waiting a long time. That's all I'm saying. 72 gigabytes. Yeah, the thing about the size, that means nothing. Really, when it comes to quality, we're talking about how it actually performs versus the size thing. You guys are going to have to get on board with the size. You're going to have to become size queens because games are just getting bigger, baby. It's going to continue happening, especially the way they put them together, what file formats they put them together, and so forth. Yeah, Amud says he loved Command & Conquer Remastered.
Yeah, Command & Conquer Remastered was great. That was a best case scenario of a remaster.
So give me an idea of what it felt. What was it like? High definition graphic, like they had used settings, got high definition graphics and that kind of stuff, or was it just really they played?
Well, there was that. There was a remaster of the entire soundtrack for Command & Conquer.
Okay, awesome.
So the entire audio side was also remastered. You could transition between the old, like you could for the first Halo remake, transition between the old graphics and the new.
Right. Very cool.
Like switch. Yeah, it was just exceptionally well done, I thought. And an amazing way for new players to experience the game if they wanted to.
A merge of 2 of them or 3 of them?
No, it was I think the original Red Alert was included, but I actually don't remember now.
Okay.
But
what I was going to ask was, how did you connect? Was because I believe did the old one use Spy? What do you call it? The Game Spy? Like, what did the old one use for connecting? What did this one? Was this one pretty easy to connect?
Yeah, I think it did use Game Spy. I don't remember what it used for multiplayer services. I did not play the multiplayer for it.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha.
But I would assume it probably uses EA servers now.
Yeah, that's one I just haven't got a chance to play. I think with the remasters, when it comes to those looking down ARPGs or RTSs, I need a lot to really want to go back to those because they didn't look great in the first place, and even the new ones don't look exactly great. So it's like
they also remastered the old FMV cutscenes for Command & Conquer.
Did they use AI to clean them up, or did they?
They partially used AI. Yeah.
Very smart. Very smart. That's cool. I wasn't aware of any of this. But looking at remasters and stuff, we've got a couple coming out. One title I want to talk about that isn't a remaster, but is really weird because it feels like a remaster and a remake and a original game, and that's Outcast. So reviews are pretty middling on this one, which I would agree with. It looks phenomenal, plays fun, but it's got enough little issues, man.
Right.
Like you'll be flying, it feels so good, and then you'll get that big stutter that pops up out of the blue. The stutter, you can't figure out how it's possible. Like I have 128 gigs on the machine. I have Gen 4 NVMe it's installed to. Same thing with the OS. Everything should be running smooth, especially in the streaming department. And then it'll just it'll a big one, not a small one. It'll be, you'll be flying, everything will look beautiful, and then on the other hand, Got some really cool world building. As a big fan of Outcast, it also looks gorgeous, man. Like, shit's ridiculous how good that game looks, man.
And the zooming around with the jetpack is really good.
Oh, it's fun. It's fun. Even with the stutter, which, by the way, doesn't always happen. It's really random. But yeah, the flying around and stuff is great. I do think that Colt says, this is interesting, Colt. I would agree with that. I watched a review yesterday. It reminds me of Defiant for some reason. I'm a huge fan of the Defiant MMO. Or Defiance. And yeah, I would agree. In some ways it does. But Outcast, was one of my favorite games of all time as a kid. And one of the reasons is the soundtrack. And this is better, even. This is the best soundtrack I've heard in years. I mean, it annihilates other side. Dude, that soundtrack is good. Like, his soundtrack is phenomenal, man. It is like, it's sort of cinematic, but at the same time, he's added in all kinds of, not ditties, but like little bits that sort of filter in during some story elements that is really, really well done. And when the action gets going and they go really heavy on the music, it's got an almost Conan the Barbarian feel. I mean, Silver's probably the only one who remembers this because I don't even know if Johnny's seen it, but like Conan, that like dun, 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 when it gets into the big bursting, like almost patriotic in a medieval way kind of music, that's what Outcast has at times. It's just like, oh my God, this is good music. So that was great.
Yeah, I grew up like watching those movies with my mom and dad.
I remember.
No, it's okay. I was like 10 years old or something.
Yeah, did you get to see both of them then when you were a kid? Conan and... Yeah, did you get to see the fake Conan called Red Sonja, where he showed up, but he wasn't really Conan, but he was Conan?
No. Okay, no, I haven't seen that one.
He's with, what's her name from Rocky IV?
Nielsen.
Brigitte Nielsen, yeah. He's with Brigitte. She's Red Sonja, and he's faux Conan, and he shows up. It's very cool. You should see it. It's got the Conan the Destroyer kind of cheesiness that Barbarian didn't have. Barbarian still had cheesiness, but Destroyer really went sort of extra, and so did Red Sonja. Colton says, I think I'd like Outcast. I think a lot of people will like Outcast. You just have to be aware. And it's better than Elix 2. It's probably better than Elix 1, but it's got these weird graphical issues that unfortunately show up. And the worst parkour ever. It's got those it's got timed parkour. Fuck you. Man, I don't know. I don't know. The moment you do them, it shows you every time. You know how it is where a game has a strength and everything they do that's not that strength makes everything worse. Like, you can feel the pull to go back to the other thing, but it sort of wants you to do those, and they're terrible,
it's
man.
A bit of an odd mix, parkour and jetpacks.
Yeah, especially when you consider that you use the jetpack, but then you also bounce off of course, Mario-like flowers that bound you up in the air. So you're like, all right, so I've got a jetpack, but then I'm also getting a double boost, plus I have skills I can buy that boost. It's just and they don't feel good, they don't feel right. But for a game that's B level, I would say a lot of people who can get through those issues will really like it. For everybody else, probably best to hold off a little bit, sort of see how it boils up for you. Maybe get a patch in there or two. Have you guys been playing anything different from the normal games we've been talking about?
There is a small game that just released a couple of weeks ago called Anomaly Agent. Side-scrolling 2D sort of beat-em-up shooter. That's pretty fun. Like Cyberpunk kind of, where you go through you do time travel basically to shut down anomalies for time traveling balance continuity agency, similar to like the TVA in Marvel that you work for. Has a very, very fun soundtrack. Very fun sort of old retro feel, nice pixel art. It's a lot of fun.
Would you say it's, what is it, 2D, 3D, side D? 2D.
Side D.
Side D. Yeah. I just had to say it that way. Is it, like, what would the graphics level be? I mean, is there another game?
It's pixel art.
It's pixel art. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I thought I had seen you post about it last night or the night before. I think I saw you draw the link for it.
Sometime this week. Yeah, I did.
Anything else that you've been playing?
Not out of the usual, just Elden Ring still, and Helldivers 2 mostly.
Oh, Helldivers 2. Copy that. Well, we are going to talk about Helldivers 2 in a moment. Johnny, what about you?
Final Fantasy VII, last Epoch, the ARPG one that came out.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, Final Fantasy is a huge game. I got like 60 hours into it. I'm just starting like chapter 10, and there's so much to do everywhere. It's crazy.
What else?
And it's still keeping you engaged?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. It's still keeping you engaged? Still keeping you, like, wanting to sit down and play it?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, like, some of the activities on the open world go a bit on the repetitive side, for sure. Some stuff being actually exactly the same in every region. But then other stuff is really great. So it's a nice mix. And you can, stop doing everything, because I started doing just absolutely everything in every single region, and I'm now kind of balancing it out a little bit, so you can come back to a region and do stuff later on instead of just completely burning out.
Judicious interaction. You're like,
because I entered a segment of regions that it's technically all the same massive region, but it's like 3 sub regions that you gain access to, and it's just like, dude, like, I need to progress with the story a little bit, because it almost feels like 2 hours of story and 30 hours of open world, like, doing stuff.
Right.
I just want to say how awesome it is in this day and age when you're not complaining, but you are pointing out that it's just 2 hours of story and 30 hours of gameplay. Which a lot of us will be like, oh, remember the old days when it was all cutscenes? I
like that.
Yeah,
like that.
And you'd have 4 feet of movement, and then even Uncharted does that at times, where you're like getting ready, you're like, I look cool, and then they're all, let us show you how cool you look. You're like, no.
Oh my god, Outriders?
Outriders, yeah. Speaking of Abzi, he is back, or he got to show up. Yeah, sorry about the time change, all of us. I didn't even know until Thursday.
Yeah, I had no idea.
I forgot, and I exist in that world. What have you been playing, Abzi?
Yeah, mostly remake or rebirth. Sorry, I'm like 100 hours in, dude. I've done like basically everything. I've 3-starred every mini game, done basically everything. Not because like I needed to 100%. I just felt like I wanted to,
Yeah.
Except for like one thing, like hard Fort Condor. Fuck that shit. Fuck Fort Condor. So
Man, you don't
everything
like
else, I liked it.
Defense game?
Do the hard mode, dude. Oh my god.
I have, bro. Come at me.
Okay. Well, yeah. So I've done everything. The last Queen's Blood game is crazy difficult, but there's 2 cards that will carry you. But yeah, no. So it's so funny. A couple days ago, I got to like around like chapter 12, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna finish it tonight, right? Because I'm like almost there. And then they do something really cool. I'm not gonna spoil it, but they do something really cool in the later chapters where it's something I don't see much often, but like they did something where the world or the game design kind of changed a bit, like very minuscule, but it's really, really cool. And so there's so much more content that just they were like, okay, here's just like a ton more content. So I was like, oh shit, well, I'm not finishing that tonight. So I've been just working through that. And yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot. I'm not a huge story person for this game. I do like Barrett, like he's like my favorite character of the game. I think he's like the most human, and he has a really interesting story and development. But other than that, like I'm not like a huge. I really, really enjoy the gameplay and the mini games, so I've been just having fun with that. Yeah.
J Reaper $5 super chat. We should call it Vintage Bullet Ballet. Bullet Ballet works. Bullet Ballet would only work for very particular shooters, though, Jay. But that's a good suggestion. We were trying to come up with other suggestions than Boomer Shooter and Stop and Pop and Pray and Spray. Yeah, because Boomer Shooter describes a people too, and it wasn't work. A person a certain age, it wasn't working for descriptors. So we were asking everybody at the starting, and then they all sounded like sexual positions, so we had to stop. Thank you very much for the super chats and joining. We've had over 200 new YouTube members. That means over 200 new people in the Discord. We absolutely appreciate it. Getting to know some of you guys has actually been very cool. I say actually. I don't want it to appear as if I didn't think it would be cool. I just mean it has actually been very cool. Actually being a positive here. It's been very enjoyable to catch up with some of you guys. Jay Richardson says, also caught up by daylight savings. Yeah, we're thinking about getting rid of it in Oregon, and it sucks, man, because it changes the amount of time we have to live in the dark, and we don't get to adjust quickly. And like for some of my family members, when that happens, it's rough. They have a really hard time with the darkness. Yep. So I'm hoping we don't pass it, but I think I've lost that battle. Javier, $5 super chat. Install sizes are increasing due to 4K and map sizes. Optimization is the rule, not the exception. File formats included. Gang. Those are 2 reasons, and there are many more. But yeah, file sizes are going to increase. And by the way, I got to point this out. Lazy devs is almost never right. You know, you might have some piece of shit devs. You might have, that kind of stuff. But I would say really,
the ones who just do an asset flip. Yeah.
Yeah, an asset flip. Really, for the most part, it has to do with how the file formats are done. Audio size is big. Audio is one of the biggest when it comes to how large a game may be, especially if they're uncompressed or barely compressed audio, that kind of thing. And different
engines do different resources
stuff.
That you have to cut corners some places.
Yeah, some really good devs from Insomniac and others have talked about how it can take up to 3 months sometimes when you've compiled your game, and then to figure out a new compression scheme or how to get it compressed and then uncompress on the fly without slowing your FPS down. Because depending on if it's a CPU, that's done in the GPU, CPU side, and on the consoles they have chips. And so it actually is a place where the PS5 with the Kraken chip is actually faster than a normal PC, because we're using our threads. Whatever PC CPU you got is going to have to take care of, those compressions. So it's going to be a little rough. Thank you very much again for everybody jumping in. Doom says Aspire's lazy trash devs. No. Aspire probably has an issue with talent. Aspire's the ones who, they've done 1 or 2 good games, but they're the ones who did Star Wars Collection, the one that just came out, the Battlefront Collection. That's got all the issues. Did you hear that they only had 64, or they only had 364 player servers?
You're joking me. There's no way, right? There's no way,
I don't know how that happened. That, by the way, that is just weird. It's not even weird. That's weird.
I mean, did they actually expect that low of
I don't think they expected that low. I think they rolled it up quick. So I think maybe it was a misstep or something.
It has to
roll up from reviewers to game people. But go ahead, Silver. Sorry, you might know more than me.
I think the only thing I can really conceive of is maybe it's because I do sometimes get the sense that there's a bubble for particularly game executives or managers where they don't necessarily recognize or realize the popularities of particular IPs.
Could be.
Or the potential of them, the audience that's out there for them, and where they're thinking goes along the lines of, no, there's not really enough of an audience for this kind of thing. And I think maybe Battlefront fell into that, especially given the flack that they got for the modern Battlefront with EA. I think maybe there was a sense born out of that there's not going to be enough or a whole lot of interest here, which was quite clearly mistaken. And I think would obviously be mistaken, but that doesn't mean that those bubbles don't exist.
Yeah,
that might be,
true,
but that just seems
it'd be weird for an
order
guy
of
in the office
magnitude
to go, "What's fucking Star Wars, dude? That's not very popular." And you're all, "What are you talking about? At minimum, we got to have maybe 6 64 servers."
But I mean, you genuinely have people who say that Star Wars is dead now.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and they had to look at a wish list, right? You got to look at wish list, SEO, see where you're setted. But I will also say I can rent 364 player servers for $199 from a server company. So there's the idea of why don't you rent 1,000 just in case? So I think here it feels to me like a very real mistake between the release time frame, review time frame, and that somehow
had to have been
and that's why they jumped up really quick. It's just an odd one.
Yeah, I had to have been that's I can't think of anything else, honestly.
Because even if I made a mod, guys, I can tell you, if I made a mod, I would buy more than 364, just because I can ask some friends and max that out. I don't know. It's just a weird one, It's too bad too. I'm hoping they get it up and running, because I do like the game, and I do like the fact that that's a remake, and that it's out, and that or a remaster, and that it's out and we can play it, because it's a fun game. That's the other thing. It's actually quite an engiable game. So
it's crazy that the most of the Star Wars games we want are just remaster or remake the old games. Give us the KOTORs, give us the old Battlefronts. You know.
I mean, I'm gonna go put my balls out on a limb, which is not a saying.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Take it.
Well, you've made it one.
I would love to see Star Wars Online, not Galaxy, but actual the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic Online get upgraded to a new engine. I genuinely think the story and everything in that is very, very good, but it's creaky ass game. You know.
Yeah,
it's
like
it's definitely
the top target. Like I like
close to 15 years old. Yeah.
I love tab targeting combat, but I wish they'd do something differently with the tab targeting. To my knowledge, it was like there was no auto attack, but you like your skills, like there's like a global cooldown, and you just had to. It was like a little bit weirder.
4, 5, 6.
Yeah, but I feel like I would benefit from a more interesting combat system.
Yeah, you know, they could remake that too. I mean, they've changed things in the game too. They have actually legitimately in these 15 years, which that makes me feel insanely old because it doesn't feel 15 years to me.
Well, it's not. It's 2011, 2012. Yeah, was
something like that.
But it's getting close to 15.
Still, yeah, I'll say more than a decade is surprising.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like Guild Wars 2 came out around the same time. I remember that because everyone was saying this one's the WoW killer. No, this one's the WoW killer. It was like that kind of. WoW has just started, I think, Cataclysm, and everyone was looking for something new. Yeah.
You know what's interesting about this?
Also, their trailers were some of the craziest trailers ever made.
Yeah, the choices stuff. We were all like, like choices in an MMO.
It turned out to be real.
Turned out to be true. Yep.
And they really worked up the hype back then. Like there was so much hype for Old Republic.
Remember, Silver, the doctors and the kids, the Sith it came out on the stage and did the little, you know, like dance when they first announced it, and you were just like, oh, you know, I don't know. Yeah. And they said, what? It's 8 KOTORs, and I was like, you're full of shit. And it was 8 KOTORs. Like they are actually right. They may not be the exact same resonance, but there's some really good stuff going on in there. I was going to bring something else up though that we were talking about around this that was pertinent, but who cares? Can't remember. Gathry's Galaxy member for 5 months of YouTube. Thank you very much for being so. Are our balls considered a limb? Yeah, if you stretch them out and somebody gets ready to chop them off, I would feel the same worry.
If they're distended enough,
if they're pulled enough. If they're under danger enough, they're a limb. They might even be an internal organ at that point because they're sort of both. With KOTOR or with these remakes for Star Wars, you guys remember that they canceled the Mandalorian one that was just getting ready to be shown.
I think was it Respawn?
Yeah, right. Because EA said we're going to do more of our own IPs or what have you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was going to bring up. Sorry. So speaking of all this stuff and proper what you say about WoW killers and what you pass your game off as, there's a very cool article I found last night that said how to get better reviews for your Steam games. And I always like to look at this to see, number one, if it's fakery. And then number two, like, is it the stuff we talk about? Like, why didn't you do this? And it was funny because it sounded like almost like a buy views for your Twitch channel type of article, right? Because it was like how to get better. And I was like, oh, no. But somebody said this is a great article. So I went and found it. And what he did was covered exactly what we all thought. This is very smart. He went into the genres prior, the games in the genre he was headed to. And then he did a spreadsheet, and he just took a word cloud of the main positive things that were said about these other games and the main negative things, and then looked at his game. One of them being that the games that got generally very positive reviews didn't always have the best graphics or anything. They had accessibility, including adjustable keys. Because if you don't have them, you will be instantly on the mostly negative. And he was saying that almost every single one, even if it's a good game, if it doesn't have them, would be 1 bar below where you expect for the review pattern, if not 2. So it was a very intelligent way. And he was talking about companies that have released it, no key ability to adjust, and then patched it real quick. And he said, yeah, they did rise up, but imagine if all those
first
were
impressions
gone.
are important.
I think options in general, they like that. Also, like, for example, even in key binding, like if you have 2 slots instead of 1, small stuff like that really gets to people. Or like obviously being able to turn off motion blur, being able to change the FOV and stuff like that.
That's all they were. Yeah. FOV was the next one. So he was talking about FOV, and he was saying that it doesn't necessarily instantly become a negative. It's that FOV seemed to be, if it was with another negative, it became a bigger negative. So if you have FPS and FOV, you're screwed. If you have performance and FOV. If you have FOV by itself, it may not remove the game from being a positive review, but it'll be mentioned. But it was this cool spreadsheet. It wasn't even really difficult to read. The other one was, I just wanted to say, the other one that was amazing was this was a side-to-side game he was doing. And he said all the ones he looked at had too long between save points. So what they did in their game was literally just go 3/4 of the distance. And then they played it for a while, and then we're like 1/2 of the distance. Boom, we're good. And these are really layman,
Yeah, well, Pacific Drive got some shit on the Steam reviews for not being able to save in a run.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, I don't think it needs to, but I do get that if somebody has that issue, they can, like, if it's not there, they wouldn't do a negative review. It is there, so therefore you have a higher chance of getting a negative review. Go ahead.
Yeah, but a save in that game would destroy a lot of the purpose, a lot of the risk reward nature. Yeah.
That's just me. Maybe do an easy mode that, like, just locks that in or something, but I
just don't play the game if you can't like, seriously, I'm serious. It's probably not the game for you if you can't like stay for like a run for like a 30
or they should
run.
have a Steam tag that's accurately replicated that states no mid-level save. It just is very clear, like, okay, there's no mid-level save, and then it's sort of on you if you did buy it. Silver, you were going to say something. I'm sorry.
Just on the subject of the key mapping, like, even when, like, to me, one of the most disappointing things is that even when developers do include the option to remap your keyboard, it's often not fully thought through in how it's implemented. So maybe you don't get like full options for keybinds, and maybe when you do, it doesn't really carry well over into how it's implemented into the game. So developers don't really think about how it's going to affect, like, ripple effect the entire sort of design, where you then have segments of the game where those keybinds suddenly don't apply. Like, for instance, there's maybe there's like the photo op or the not the photo op, the virtual, I think, digital vision you have in Cyberpunk. I forget.
Yeah,
rain dance
or dialogue
or snow dance or rain dance or something.
And whatever. That's a good example.
Rain dance.
But also other stuff where I likened it a lot to like Ubisoft sort of HUD, where they don't necessarily think about the implications of
turning it off.
Of turning it off or giving the option. They just give the option and that's it.
Damn.
Yeah. Agreed.
We don't really think too much about how
mode.
we implement it.
Like exploration mode and Assassin's Creed and stuff, they don't design it around that. Like, it ends up being like, hey, it's 500 meters around this area or something, and it's like, it's not the same. I like it. I really, really like when, especially if a game has a lot of keybinds and stuff, when they let you bind 2 at once, like holding shift while pressing something else, like being able to do that type of stuff is really, really nice.
Johnny, what are your thoughts on anything for Steam games? Like, what do you think are low-hanging fruit for good reviews? Or better, not getting so instantly negative, not necessarily making the game better, but what are some things that you see that you're like, guys, what the fuck?
I think a lot of the like common sense things, like have an FOV slider and stuff like that, that seems really obvious. But at the same time, it's kind of cool to see like a data-driven showing of those effects, because we can all say like, yeah, obviously it's going to impact it, but I think it's cool to measure it in that way. I never thought about looking at it like that. I think that also, like, graphics options, one of the things that are a big problem is when you have screen tearing in the game, but you don't have enough options like VSync and stuff like that. I remember still the Final Fantasy VII Remake PC port had some horrible issues with all kinds of things, graphics wise, like screen tearing and different things. And it had like one option that, didn't fix it. And that pretty much renders it unplayable. I think those things are really anything that kind of becomes a barrier for you to play the game. So, the accessibility stuff, but also I think graphics, if you're constantly running into stutters and you're unable to change settings to alleviate that type of stuff. Yeah.
Oh man, that's a deep dark rabbit hole, especially in Steam. So Steam reviews are usually, if they're indicative of anything, they're mostly centered there on PC port performance and stuff like that. It's mostly technical side of things in Steam.
Yeah.
But what's crazy, I guess perplexing, or maybe it's not perplexing, but dude, there's so many systems and people have so many old cards, and people can say this game crashes a lot for me and it's stuttering so much. But, I guess you have to take in the aggregate and see the percentage of people saying that, because it's crazy. You never know with Steam reviews, because I've seen like posts where someone would be complaining about like the optimization of a game. And then at the end, like someone would ask them, well, what graphics card do you have? And they're like a 980. And it's like, well, dude, That's why I think a game right at the starting should in some way, if you could do it, if you could have it ask the gamer or inform the gamer right away that you have a card that is unacceptable. Just state right away. So it boots in and it's like, here's the movie for the game, here's this, and then it's like bang, you're screwed. You can't play this game. And I would be okay with that, because we do see it. I've seen it even in our Discord where somebody's like, hey, this game doesn't work, and I'll be like, okay, what game, or what one are you playing on? They're playing like 6 gigabyte VRAM, and they're trying to play the new Final Fantasy. Like, dude, come on, man. What are you expecting? Like, they're not going to accordion everything in there, So there's certain things that I would like to see done. I would say also on a lot of PCs, I'm really stunned that you can't do both inputs at the same time. They purposely pause. So if you have a gamepad, you have a mouse. Sometimes I like to mess around with analog and aim, and I'll be moving, and it'll go, and it'll freeze for like a full half a minute, and then go, and it'll start moving. What game did that, man? Recently,
just recently, it was
Elden Ring or something.
No, the game I'm talking about was actually even more recent. Which one? But Elden Ring may have as well. But it stopped everything. It just freezes and waits around for something to change. And it would be cool to just be able to, we've talked about GTA. You might run around on mouse and keyboard, and then you jump in, you want to use your steering wheel. And you can do both simultaneously. Like you can have one hand on the controller and the other on the mouse. To me, that's cool. I've done a little bit lately with mouse and keyboard and gamepad, and that was with Outcast, and it actually worked pretty well. I didn't, in the end, use it because, honestly, it felt pretty good either way. But, yeah. That would be another one. Even Yakuza, in Yakuza, you had to mash a button to recruit Sujimon. So I would quickly switch to my mouse and keyboard and mash left click and E mash something really quickly. So I can mash, yeah. The other one was I do firmly believe that companies need to stop categorizing something as fucking post-processing when what it really means is like 19 fucking effects in one battery.
In one, bro. And motion blur is part of it. And you turn it off and
it looks like shit, and you turn it on and it runs like shit, and it's got like chromatic aberration everywhere. You're like, dude, what are you doing?
Even motion blur alone, they used to give us the option of motion blur, a camera motion blur, or a screen motion blur, and per object motion blur. And sometimes they started just putting those two together for some reason, and it's annoying.
Or they do. Yeah. Have you noticed this also with motion blur? A lot of times a game won't let you turn it off. It'll low, medium, high. And you'll be like, where's the no? Where's the no? Yeah. Not that I have an issue with low. I usually am totally fine with it. It's just that it's just like head bob in Atomic Heart. It's like it's 1 to 10, but you can only go to 0.2. There's always head bob in the game. And you're like, dude, what is happening? Why is there no off on this thing? So those kinds of things I think are get out of jail free cards for an instant, and those are discomfort things too. I think that's the other thing is if you can take care of accessibility and discomfort, then even trying to fix your game if it does get negative seems to be easier because you're not bouncing all these other fucking weird complaints off, and instead people are complaining about a little bit more accurately about what's going on in the game. But it was a really good document. I'll put it in the first comment of this podcast when I remember. what it was, but it was a very good article with some good backing structure to.
Was there anything in there
reviews.
about languages? Because we've seen some review bombings about like bad localizations.
Mandarin's
one thing
like the
they
biggest
said
one, right?
really sucked was that how did it go? There was something in this one, and then the side article that said something along the lines of there were times where Chinese was a lack of a Chinese Chinese translation was not in the game, and then when they went and checked, it wasn't even for sale there. And so they're trying to find out if that's actually a bot, like what is going on? Why would somebody randomly be listing out each? I'm not saying only people who live in China speak Chinese. But there's a very particular thing going on with Chinese translations that I think is bigger than just the game. And I can't tell exactly what that is, but we're seeing it a lot of times, and it seems very odd. Now, it could just be a bunch of people using VPNs and buying them, which is completely valid. But it's also hard to translate every language. I mean, how many?
And there's a lot of Chinese
languages?
people that are like exchange students, and a lot of
true that. But that
and
also breaks you down. What are you speaking? Which the accent? Because that is one difference. Is you can translate. I mean, even if you translate somebody like myself to an East Coast person, they are still speaking general English. But like my wife speaks a completely different version of Chinese than some other people, where you're just like, damn, that's.
I think Mandarin is like the biggest thing they complain about, right? Like no Mandarin.
I think so. Yeah. Versus like Cantonese or something. But it's cool to see these lists. I think developers are looking at this kind of stuff more, which is awesome. Because if you can get those little not babies, and they don't matter, but the things that I think we all want to see in a game, from the very lowest. So yeah, it was a very cool article, man. They did a really good job, and it did just hit, I think, what we've already hit. There was not a lot of stuff for audio. There's save games. Tutorial pops if you haven't played for a while, but that wasn't in the negative. It was like just a thought process of like a soft. Yeah, could you please have a soft, like moment where it checks your save game time, and if it's been 5 years since you last played, maybe pop me a tutorial.
I think what game did something Stanley Parable, I think, where if you haven't logged in, if you haven't played the game for 5 years, there's a thing there, or like an achievement.
There's been a couple. So it's checking the save game and then fully going. Yeah, that's cool. I hadn't seen that.
I mean, Metal Gear Solid 3 did it for a boss battle.
2 weeks, right?
The boss would die of old age.
Yeah, if you wait for 2 weeks before playing again, or a week or something.
You could kill the boss completely if you waited for 2 weeks?
Yes.
Was it just one boss or all the bosses?
It was one boss.
It's an old boss. He's a sniper.
Old boss. That's cool.
And you would load back into the game, and then you would find him dead.
Yeah,
people were lying there waiting for you. Yeah,
people were like spoofing their save game or something to get that.
I mean,
they were adjusting the clock on their PlayStations.
I mean, makes me want to set the time now on every one of my games just to see if a boss will die. But that's a Kojima thing, right? Like that's sort of just the oddity of a Kojima thing. So we've talked about Outcast, we've talked about games, reviews, that kind of stuff. What's everybody been playing in chat? Have you played anything good? Anything that we're not talking about? That is one of the problems is when we start talking, we're going to talk about Helldivers and all those that we've all talked about. Is there anything that we're missing? I'm sure there's about 50 games that we're missing.
Yeah.
But,
the
one thing I do want to talk about is Rise of the Ronin previews.
Yeah.
So...
man, I only watched one of them.
What did you see? Go ahead. I'm going to let this dog out. Continue. What did you guys see? What do you think? Anybody have any thoughts?
Oh, dude, man. Okay, I watched Fighting Cowboys, and he has a general he really really likes Neo too. Neo in general is one of his favorite Souls-likes, and I agree. It's probably my favorite aside from like Elden Ring. It's my favorite combat in Souls-like, and that's what I like Ninja Theory, because they really they really go hard on the combat, man. Like they give you a lot of options, and you can combo a lot of stuff, and I just love the depth of theory crafting combos and all that, and the stances and everything. And the way he was talking about it, like I was also the horse animations and stuff, we all saw that, the graphics, the look of the game, especially when you compare it to like Ghost of Tsushima, which is coming out soon on PC. It's just like a sad, but I saw he talked about the stances. Well, he was talking about how the combat isn't that impressive, but it's let's be real here. It's only the first couple hours of the game. Okay, we can be fair a little bit, you know. But still, like he was talking about how the stances is more like rock paper scissors, and I was like, no, please, you guys are like the only ones that did stances so well. Please don't do this to me. So yeah, I'm not as hyped about the game as I once was, just off that one preview. So I don't have like a better understanding of the game so far, but it did not look that impressive to me from that. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen other previews though. So
Johnny, Silver, you guys seen any previews?
Yeah, I saw one. Actually, I saw two. I saw Cowboys as well. I think that was a pretty big mistake making the, rock, paper, scissors. We've talked ad nauseum about it.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good system for like stances or combat in general in games. I think that kind of neuters creativity, because that means there's one way to fight that guy, right? As opposed to, oh, you can fight him in a multitude of ways with different strategies. It becomes it seems they streamlined the combat a lot.
Yeah.
While also keeping a very big focus on parrying, which I don't know if it's right for, I'm not to say right, but I think like a strength in the Neo games is that it wasn't that much about parrying, actually. It was a lot about your attack patterns and being really good at overwhelming enemies and that type of stuff, rather than being reactive and waiting for the parry window. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm a little bit disappointed by what I've seen. And also, it doesn't look very good. I don't want to be, like too harsh on it, but let's just remember that Ghost of Tsushima came out on the PS4, and
the world,
like,
man. Yeah.
There's something about
NPCs.
like, obviously there's an artistic diff here. Like, Team Ninja is not like the Bob, no, what's his name? Bob not
Ross.
Dylan,
Ross.
that's the music guy. Ross.
Bob Ross.
They're not the Bob Ross of video games, Team Ninja, right? They do great gameplay. They're not like gonna paint a picture for you. Ghost of Tsushima was that, but then just like the stark difference of how sort of gray and uninteresting the world seems looking at it. There's some cool buildings and stuff, but that's about it. Like the only sort of interesting thing I saw about it.
The horses. But no, yeah.
Yes.
Plus, I'm watching Shogun, and I'm really like, I really want to.
Dude, me too. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it was sad to see that. But who knows? It's just a preview. So.
What about you, Silver? Anything?
Yeah, I did see like a small preview like 2 weeks ago or something. I think it might have been an older preview. But it's gonna sound really petty, but like it looked interesting from like the combat perspective up until the moment I saw the glider, and then my interest really sort of died.
You were hoping for more of a traditional, like locked in real history kind of thing.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah,
more.
I guess. I just feel like it's just become one of those things that I feel like it's just getting shoehorned in these days, whether it feels like it kind of belongs there organically or not, like the old bow and arrow. Like it's just
checkbox.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bullet point, pretty much. And so that really sort of disheartened me, and at that point, I really struggled to maintain interest and conjure any sort of enthusiasm for it. Unfortunately.
Yeah. So we can only talk about a very, it's a very truncated experience you're able to talk about and stuff like that. But I can say from my impressions up to that, what it turned out to be like 120 minutes or something, is very unimpressed. And it's stunningly unimpressive to the point of being, it is far closer to Dynasty Warriors than it is Neo 1 or even Neo 2 or Ghost. And it's very odd because this is also one of the first games that I had a very difficult time making characters look good once I got out of the editor. It reminds me of the older 360 games or something where you make a character, and I made what I thought looked a certain way, and then once they showed up They even have
the
a lighting
suddenly.
They even had a lighting system in the character generator, so you can see what they look like during daytime. And I was like, well, it looks a little off, but then during night it looks fine. Blah blah blah. I got them in there, and I was like, whoa, that's. I mean, it's like a mannequin. Like it doesn't look like. So I had to reset and restart and actually do it again, and just sort of make them more generic to make them look normal during the game. But I will say that it's not. There's a difference between bad and between like the comparison to Ghost. Ghost is a different game. It's doing a different thing, that kind of stuff. But you're going to compare it because we have the PC port coming, and it's a known entity. Ghost also did rock paper scissors, so it's not like I can magically say Ghost is
the
amazing.
combat wasn't that impressive in Ghost. Yeah.
And the combat here can be impressive, but let me tell you why it is not. There are times where it is quite easy to not have either thumb on the analog sticks because you're inputting moves. And it really kills my soul when a move is right bumper up on the digital pad and B. And you're like, there's no input right now for movement at all. I can't even forward, like I can't even, prepare a move forward. Now, is it long-term? No, it's not long-term. But it's the fact that it's there at all. And it's one of the major moves you get. And so it's basically switching from a move to your other weapon, which is what, stance switching in some games, weapon switching in others. I thought it might just be a button, but it's not. It's a combo of buttons, and they really like their digital pad during combat.
So weird.
You can't do a digital pad to switch characters. You have to hold a bumper and do the digital pad. You can't just do switch into different a weapon hitting a bumper. You have to hold a digital pad and do the bumper and do another button if you want to do an attack at the same time. There's some cool stuff you can do, though. You can turn auto attacks on, which sounds weird when you first think about it, but all it's really doing is inputting the first 3 attacks. And because the game isn't based on up A, B, 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 X, Y, Z, B, 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 A, there's nothing like that in the game. It's not about that. It's actually okay to do that, and then that way you can you can sort of pre-buffer that bumper up to do the weapon switch out and do damage. Also, the counter does damage, which sounds sort of awesome, but it's not, because the counter spark
it goes
is
both
weird.
Ways, or
yeah, and so you can hit the guy, but you're not countering him, you're hitting him, which might cause something else to happen, so it feels messy, instead of this is a counter, and that's all it's called a counter spark, and it's like this attack, which in a way isn't bad. But the way it plays out, every enemy in a group requires it. Every enemy, even if it's a mob, requires the same type of... You're basically destroying their key. And so you're constantly going, well, shit. Sometimes I've used the counter as an attack. I'll be brutally honest. It's just been happening. I'll be like, just because I thought a guy might be coming in. And so I was like, if I hit the counter, great. If I don't, I could possibly stall this guy here who isn't really ready to attack me, but it might reset him a bit. And then there's just some other odd. It's a very different style of game. And yeah, the horses do not look like a horse. Do you know what they look like? 3 separate pictures of a horse animated via AI. It is the weirdest thing I've seen. It's the front and torso, the back and the head, and they never meet up. And he's got the worst constipation I've ever seen. This is a horse.
It goes like this, right?
Cowboys are supposed to have bow legs, not the horse. Yeah. The horse comes out with bow legs, and you're just. By the way, is that going to kill me? No, not at all. But it's funny looking. It's funny looking. Mm-hmm. When you see it, you're like, this looks really odd. There are other parts that look pretty, man. I can't. There's things that you see later that look good. I like the weapons. I love the weapons, but it does have the very atypical upgrades which kill my soul, and that's you come out in your kimono and you have your moment, blah blah blah, all this stuff happens because of course we know there's like 2 characters in the game and all this weird shit. And the first upgrade I got was Silver will love this, but like a fedora. And so here I am in a kimono with a pair of combat boots on and a ninja sword and a kimono and a fedora, and it sounds so dumb to care, but the game doesn't know if it wants to be historically in the moment because it follows the Edo period, and that is very historical, very easily tracked, not long ago enough that there were historians talking about it, and then also doesn't know if it just wants to be almost like a Ninja Gaiden Neo Japan random game. It
Right.
in the first hour and a half, up until that point, I can talk about. You definitely notice that that is noticeable. That it feels like there's
It's tonally
lack
dissonant.
lack of cohesion on all these parts. Now that may turn out to be awesome, because we have seen it where you get the same fucking helmet all the time. You're like, ugh. So some people may like a fedora and some, laced up biker boots in their game. It may end up being something that pays off in the long run. But I can say for that first part, playing up to it was just like, wow, this is all over the place. And it sort of speaks to how quick this popped up. This sort of went from nobody talking about it to suddenly it was at a Sony event. And then it's an exclusive and coming out. And it feels like that, if that makes sense. It feels like
I was
less
tracking
time.
it for a long time because I'm a huge, well, I can't call myself a Team Ninja fan anymore. I'm a huge Neo fan. And I thought this would be, you wait for that one game. It's like BioWare, where it's like, okay, is this the game where they go back and, make it good? They're going to be great again. But like the reason it kills my soul a lot, not to mention I don't know how the level design is here, but their level design has been going down and down as well. But it seems to me that the reasons I loved Neo 2 is like the exact opposite reasons of opposite stuff of what they're putting into this game.
That would be
where it's like the huge breadth of options you have in combat and how you can how you can theory craft your own stuff there, and that magic seems to be gone.
Are there guns in Rise of the Ronin?
Yeah.
You get them real quick, which is nice. They don't. It takes you a while. There's a good skill list that they're connected to the stats and stuff, which we can't show or really allowed to talk about too much. And there's nothing negative to that. It's just because you show a picture of somebody doing an active move. That's sort of a spoiler. But there's some stuff there with guns. One of the first guys that in the demo, we've seen this in their trailers where you fight a guy with a gun. Yeah, that's in there, and you have different spots that you can carry different weapons, including your shurikens and your what else? You got bows, you have guns. There's a couple other things, so you definitely have some stuff in there, which is cool. And you have a good number of the bonuses, like this stops you from wasting energy in your key when you do a parry or whatever. This stops this, and you'll get a shirt with 3 ups. And versus a shirt that's like higher armor but only has 2 improvements. This stuff we've seen before. Very easy to parse, I will say, though. When you hit a button and you look at their lists and like what attribute is affected, that's nice, because it's just like boom. So even Elden Ring, there were so many that when I hit that button and you start going down, there's just bars and graphs and skills. This is a little easier to parse, which I think could be indicative.
It just seems very streamlined.
Yeah, now it comes out. It does. Yeah.
Like
and what's weird is it seems like 3 streamlines, which might be the problem. Instead of one streamlined Ghost of Tsushima style game, or one streamlined Dynasty Warriors game, we have 3 streamlines into one game, which is Dynasty Warriors Ghost, and maybe a bit Elden Ring, a bit Assassin's Creed, because the overmap definitely reflects that kind of gameplay.
From what I'm gathering, you're describing, it sounds more like Dynasty Warriors 9 than like the good old Dynasty Warriors.
Yeah, it does feel more like a Dynasty Warriors than it does. I mean, it looks better. I don't want to say that, but there's something about it, and there's less enemies in Dynasty Warriors. You're not. The enemies are set up more like the Sekiro or Neo, but there's something Dynasty Warriors about this game. Like I don't know. It comes through. It comes through. What were you gonna say?
There is one thing. Oh, sorry. Go for it.
Yeah. Do they have a good stealth system at least, or did you fuck around with that? Like, do they have good stealth AI or?
Let me look at my NDA real quick.
NDA.
Not because there's a problem. I just want to verify what I'm allowed to talk. So yeah, you're allowed to talk up to So stealth, especially in the first part that you're allowed to talk about, stealth works. There are some things you can get that augments how many you can kill and all that kind of stuff. And I would say they seem rather easily. They seem to succumb easily from stealth. And I think that's good. What I mean by that, yeah, I can't. They don't have the longest vision cones. I'll just say that. They don't. Yeah. And so stealth works. Yeah, stealth works. And it depends on the difficulty. I will also say I've heard some people say, oh, this game's super difficult. First of all, if you set this on easy, it is quite literally a baby made of knives. Everybody will be dead. You will not have an issue. And I mean, if you are a poor player, you will not have an issue with this game on easy. You will not. And that's good. That's the way it should be. It's called easy for a reason. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Once you start setting it up, the penalties for missing, the penalties for not parrying go up commensurate with that. I didn't notice any new, at least for now, I didn't notice any new skill use when you went up. But, yeah. Stealth, jury's out on stealth, because stealth is one of those things that I like to test it on the hardest guys. It definitely has a system where you do the thing where you can tell this guy's cooler than everybody else, you know? It's like Jackson, Sons of Anarchy. Everybody's
you
generic
like
and he's blinged out.
One-shot him.
You'll do the Assassin's Creed thing where you're like, yeah, and then he pushes you off. He's still very hurt, but you're not going to be, you know, unless there's weapons, which there absolutely could be.
It's an Assassin's Creed game.
So how do the difficulty increases affect stuff like enemy health or
so far?
Health?
It appears to be just that it adjusts. Right. Well, I don't mean just that, but just exactly what you're thinking. It does
mainly
affect
that, yeah.
Mainly that,
sure.
And then it really does affect. I feel like they're more aggressive, and I feel like that the penalty is really rough. Because I did die on easy, by the way. I did when I went in and just went like, meh, meh, meh. I'd run out of key, and when you're out of key, it's like you're screwed, and you're probably going to die, and a dog killed me or something. So you can die that way, but on the harder ones, you will die that way for sure. I think that's one of the issues this game may have, and all games of these kinds may have, including hard always makes these games break, because like we've talked about this before, Assassin's Creed, if you try to stab somebody and the game doesn't want you to be able to kill them, like Starfield, you shoot some characters and they just fall and bleed, and you're like, no, why is he not dead? I've blown him up, and it doesn't allow you to. In the same way, an Assassin's Creed game will stop you from killing somebody, and you're like, seriously, I snuck up on him. I should get some reward for that. This game, like almost every game I know of, just doesn't have it in it. It just isn't there yet to make them more cognizant to of you and stuff like that. I've been seen far away, but a lot of times you get that thing where characters look, and you can see them looking, and you're looking, and they're looking, and you're and then you duck down into the grass, and then they are all must have been nothing. You know, that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's a game. It's gonna happen. I would say jury's out on stealth. Jury's out. It's going to, you know, you have boss fights, so you're not going to be able to obviously stealth the bosses. It'll go into a special loading screen and stuff. They'll know you're there. But I like some of the designs. Love the weapons, man. I'm such a big fan. Like when you got like the no Adachi and Odachi, those bigger, the horseman samurai swords. I like those. So I took the smallest girl possible.
That was my favorite weapon in Neo. Yeah.
Oh, dude. And this thing is, and they come ornate. So like you'll start with like a, you know, you pick your weapons to start, and I picked like double swords, even though I didn't pick the right stats for this purposely. I like to minimax. I picked that, and then I got the big big horseman sword, and that thing was awesome.
No Kurisigawa?
Not that I've seen. No. Okay. I think chain weapons are really difficult to animate because only Neo has chain weapons, right?
They've done it before. Yeah.
For Honor did as well.
For Honor has Kurosagama, or does it have other stuff? Okay.
Yeah, no, the Shinobi class uses the Kurosagama.
Does it? All right. Well, then there you go. So, and you know, we'll see the sword. We'll see that. What is it? A dart on a chain. That's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about like the whipping ones and stuff.
Yeah,
like you guys are talking
with the pick basically.
Yeah.
Or axe or whatever you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to find it fun. I think that you just really. I think Cowboy said this. I don't know if it's Cowboy. Cowboy's probably one of the few he likes things more than I like him sometimes, especially if they're fighting him. He'll ignore a lot of stuff because he's a streamer.
Yeah,
like that's
he's
not a reviewer. That's okay.
Very negative.
That's what I was going to say. Is that I think he might have been the one I did watch, where I trust that it's not like anti-Ubisoft, where I'm going to watch it and be like, I don't know where this person's coming from. He said something like, readjust your expectations If you're expecting a Neo or a Neo 2, readjust your expectations before it comes out. And I think that there's nothing wrong with saying that and still liking it.
No.
Absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
Do you think it's weird that they didn't go for a Neo 3? You know, they've instead done Wulong, which was a bit of a departure, and then now this, which is way bigger of a risk to go open world.
I think Wulong has a lot in common with Neo, though, because it's still the more hub based, where this is open world. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know. You okay, buddy? I don't know why, because
Like
Neo 3
I'm
would be
perfectly
great.
fine with I'm perfectly fine with not doing a Neo 3, but I just wanted them to. I expected more. I expected more of them, and when it comes to combat and stuff, I did expect the Neo open world, but with Neo, not Neo combat exactly, because you're not fighting demons and stuff, but just like a similar approach to combat.
Yeah. They do that's the thing, is like every game you only interact with it 2 or 3 ways. One's combat, the other's talking and exploration. You're not really interacting with it any other ways. And so if the combat works across the entire period of time, even if it's disappointing to Neo fans, which I think that's what's going to happen here, is I think if you go into it expecting Neo, yes, you're gonna have.
I just hope it's not
time.
indicative of them just streamlining everything from now on, and not, because
I don't know, because is it streamline? True, but is it streamlining to do a giant open world that's more like Ubisoft with sections and all that? Is that's sort of a stretch in that part, at least. It's a bigger
in that part,
attempt.
I guess.
Yeah,
and in the narrative too, right? It seems much more like story heavy than.
Sure, yeah. I never watched
comment.
a story of them. Yeah, I've
you
always,
can't comment.
I've always skipped cutscenes from their games, but just the combat itself, just that specifically, like the skill ceiling seems to have been, but I don't know, man.
Skill
the
ceiling,
previews,
unless
again,
if you go to hard, I bet you the skill ceiling is, and this is what I'm playing at right now, switching it around. Easy's really easy. Like I said, the only way to die would be to just swing, missing, people hitting you, not trying to heal, blah, blah, blah. Medium feels pretty fair. And then hard feels spicy.
Okay.
But probably not to the level of complexity that spicy feels on Neo 2 or Neo 1 or Wulong. More like a spicy Dynasty Warrior. But not in a bad I'm not saying terror. Yeah, there's pole arms. Yep.
Like Yari or Naginata.
They all of them, I will say, I still like the weapons, man. I really dig them. There's something about, like, when you're out there swinging a big weapon, you switch weapons, even if it takes 85 buttons and an elbow press and a fucking yelling at your screen. When you do it, it still looks pretty awesome to go from, like, double katanas to that. And you know, cutting some, or you have a special move where, like, you leap up and the special moves are really out of place. I will say that. All the other moves are like different sword moves, and then when you do a special move, you're like, so there is that. But they all look cool. I like that kind of. I like the weapons.
I did see. I saw a cool thing where, like, you parried a bullet and then the sword caught on fire and you used it to, like, that shit's cool, you know.
Yeah,
it's
so
not
you
very historically accurate.
No, it's not historically accurate at all, which is awesome because it looks cool. The first time you do it, you can bounce them back to them, but on the fiery ones, and there are other things you can apply to weapons, which I think is really cool. Very cool, because they will adjust stuff. I like the mixture of enemies in the places I got to see as well. There was a good I'm not saying it was good, like amazing. I'm just saying the stuff that I saw looked good and enjoyable. And I think with the mixing of different character types, it'll keep people busy on medium and hard, or busier. Any other questions for that before we move on? Sound is pretty good as well. Not amazing, but
how's
pretty good.
How's the NPCs in the villages and stuff? Like, they don't usually do a lot of NPCs in life.
So I'm reading my NDA.
Yeah, go for it.
It's such a difficult conversation because you can only talk about.
This is why I didn't do the preview, but I think I'm totally open to say this. Yeah, I am. There are people in villages, and they do give you quests, but adjust your expectations to like a line or two quest done kind of thing. There is not a bunch of options for those kind of characters. There's not like the radial dial they've been showing. That's a story. That's the big thing. These are more like, can you get 10 plants? Can you get 10 of this? Can you get one of the first ones you'll get is, can you get me some medicinal herbs? And it's really teaching you to go to places to fight. That's the only reason, because the herbs, the 3 herbs are always protected by a bunch of guys who are like standing there. Like, what?
Like those herbs.
Yeah,
but does the city? Does the city feel bustling? Like, does it feel alive?
Yeah, there's a good there's a good number of people.
Okay.
I think it's hard now. I'm certainly not saying this is better, but I want to point out that when you come out of Starfield and it's got a bunch of people in the cities, that felt like a big jump from Skyrim and so forth. This feels like a step down from that. It's not that busy, but it's better than Skyrim with the 12 same jackasses. Sure. It's definitely better than that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll be cool to see what everybody thinks, but again, readjust your expectations, and then if you're readjust them, man. Don't expect the world from everything, and you'll probably be fine. Go ahead.
I had less hope for something like Neo than more something like Bushido Blade, given like the.
I wish I could compare it, but I don't remember anything about Bushido Blade. Sorry.
Well, I mean, the defining characteristic of that game's combat was one hit, one kill, with the swords.
I got one hit, one
kill. Where it was slower. And more because anyone getting the first hit was basically the win of the match.
Yeah, this is nothing like that. There are definitely hard guys, though. There are definitely guys you can go up against and be like really ruined pretty quickly, and maybe unfairly. There's going to be a lot of discussion about the combat. Fighting, like I said, Fighting Cowboy for the most part covers. Even if he doesn't review most of the time, he's streaming, and he's always pretty clear on what you're getting and why he likes something. Why do I like the combat, even if the game overall isn't the greatest? Why I do like, and I would say that everything I've seen from him, I think I've seen like 2 bits of his video. They were snippets, and I don't even think they were him. I think somebody cut his short to just say, here's some thoughts on Bushido Blade. Or now you got me saying it, Bushido.
Sorry.
It's all right. Here's some thoughts on Rise of the Ronin. And I would say, yeah, it seems like that.
How do you feel about the parrying? Is the parry window fair? Is it a little bit like Liza P, where it's very tight?
No, it's fair. And the guys I went against had varying different levels of what the fuckness when they first attacked. Some guys leap in and then dive. So do you guys remember in Starfield? I'm just bringing up Starfield because it's off the cuff, one of the few games I remember doing this. But in Starfield, you'd shoot at somebody, and sometimes a guy with a knife would run up and then juke and then get close to you. And you're like, whoa, I wasn't expecting a juke. That's Rage did that. Rage 1 did that very well. This definitely has that. And that's cool because you'll go into a fight, there'll be 4 people. One guy's juking, the other guy's, of course, range, he's out there. Somebody else is sneaking behind you. That was really cool. That, like, the way everybody sort of moved around was really cool. Whether that turns out to be cool over this long period of time, that's the big question, right? What is cool in the first 30 minutes or an hour and a half may not be cool at all. And also, what doesn't feel great in the first hour and a half, this is why when we review games, Absy and I talked about it with certain titles where I'll be like, I didn't like it, and somebody played the first 30 minutes and be like, this is the best game ever. I don't know what you're talking about. I'll be like, come back at me when you played 40 hours of it and tell me the same thing, because it's the grind that matters. And I don't mean grind by parts. I just mean spending a lot of time watching systems degrade that seemed awesome, or systems that sucked that suddenly catch on when you get that one skill. There's some cool skills in the game, too. So I personally think there's some actually I didn't see any of the plus 10. Well, there's a couple. But the actual skills were very cool. They did things, they adjusted things. So that was awesome.
One last question. Sorry, super quick. Did you like the menus? Because one issue I've always had with their games is their like menus and inventory and stuff.
Yeah, had no issue with parsing data, but just like any of these games we're starting to see, they have the menu in the menu, right bumper, and then inside right trigger, and then inside A, B to, where you're 3 deep into a menu. They still had that. Overall, I didn't love them. and there were a couple that I was like, oh, this is cumbersome. Gotcha. But overall, I didn't love them. They don't impact you like Ubisoft, where you hit a button and you wait 45 minutes for the fucking menu to pop up. You know, Avatar was one of the first games I really remember from Ubisoft to have that instant menu. And if you noticed on Avatar, it didn't have the transparency. Have you guys ever noticed in Ubisoft games, they love doing that fade out where you still see some of the background? They go like, whoop, and you can still see, like, you know, like a fancy, highfalutin kind of HUD or UI. That is, that's why I thought Avatar reacted quickly. This reacts pretty quickly to all that. Yeah, pretty quickly. Yeah. So, moving on from there, unless anybody has any questions, we're going to move on from there. Somebody asked me if I want to talk about PS4 5 Pro leaks. Haven't seen anything new by anybody trustworthy. I've seen like random people saying that they know stuff, but they've always turned out wrong. So I don't know any new ones. Doesn't mean there aren't any, but as of last night when I looked, I didn't see anybody that like was trustworthy that was talking about new PS5 Pro stuff. Would you get a Pro? I think we all decided here that's a big negatory anyway, right? I'll get it for reviews, but it's not driving anybody to get a Pro.
I only see my I doubt this will happen. I doubt they will like really make a huge CPU upgrade. But if it was the difference between GTA like 60 and 30 or something, I don't know. Probably not even then, man. Maybe. But I doubt it'll happen. I doubt that would happen. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm the same way where I'll get it because of reviews. But I mean, GTA 6 might be a, you know, what if you see a huge downgrade, let's say, between your Xbox, like that could drive people. But I think overall, PS5 Pro just isn't even in my window unless something amazing comes up. Yeah, which I'd be phenomenal if it did. There's so many lies about what these systems could do that we're playing right now. When before they came out, saying what they would do, it's always been that way. So these days, it's hard to track it. Moving on from there, let's talk about Dragon's Dogma. So
yes, that trailer, dude. That trailer yesterday was awesome.
Which trailer? Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. The trailer yesterday.
The Ian McShane one.
Amazing voice.
Yeah, he's got an amazing voice. What did he do? Just cover
he covered the main character, like being in Arisen, having pawns. Covered the world, you know, having the 2 countries and like the 3rd area, and covered just the enemy types, some of them and stuff like that. Just like an overview, a little overview of the game.
Yeah, the races,
cool new spells
that you're gonna meet in the game.
Oh, the races. Okay.
Some of them.
What did he do? Did he try to anti-spoil? Oh, go ahead. I'll ask mine later. Go for it.
I will say, like that trailer certainly didn't make the Beast Run feel any less derivative of the Khajiit, in that not only are they a cat people, but they're also a cat people living in the desert.
Yeah, us Arabs are always cats, you know. So
yeah, right. Yeah. I think we've talked that to death because I agree with you completely. I want dogs, but I just think it's easy for them to do because we carry in an established knowledge from other games. So it's easy for them to lie to us quickly and get us to buy in. Cats, desert, merchants probably, because, you know, a cat and his toy or what. I don't know how the merchant thing began, but that's sort of like in every game too, where they're all, you know, Khajiit has wares kind of stuff. It's just sort of expected.
I just love, man, like, I don't know why. I was watching it with a friend last night, and when just seeing all the game, like fighting all these different creatures, these very well-known classic Greek mythological creatures, Roman, whatever, like seeing harpies, seeing, you know, and we saw them in the first game, but seeing those chimeras and the griffins it's like, yo, we're gonna get a fantasy game, like no weird
none of
shit,
that
nothing
old
like
shit.
That. Just like a classic, like fantasy adventure, high fantasy, everything's going on, and I've wanted that for a while. Yeah.
Somebody brought that up in chat yesterday, actually. They were like, man, there's a lot of griffins, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, listen, I would rather say there's a lot of griffins than where can you find a griffin? I want a game that is not the last dragon, the last wizard. I want everybody being a wizard, everybody being a dragon. That's a high danger area for me. Like, I love that idea. Yeah, it's great. I think they've done a really good job on sort of showing without leaking too much too. At least so far. That's why I didn't watch this last one, because I was a little nervous that maybe, you know, they might leak something farther in the game, because that's the thing about Capcom is
Sometimes they
just
show
like
too much.
Square. Well, they did show a couple monsters in the last couple trailers. Nothing super far in, but far enough that you're like, I don't know, guys. Maybe not do that. But maybe it's impossible. Or also, I think developers put so much in a game that to them they think that's 1/1,000,000th of the game. So there's no problem. And when I review, that's what I do. I'll pick like one or two things and be like, if this game has 50 bosses, I'm not going to lose sleep over showing you 3. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like that's at that point. Come on. Go ahead.
Plus, what I love is like they said previously, like they're not afraid of working hard on content and enemies and stuff that are completely hidden and optional and stuff. So
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? They don't want to show everything. For
And
sure.
I'm full expecting like hidden classes that haven't been shown yet to be
Maybe.
like
I'm
in
not
the game.
expecting it, but I will be surprised if there is. I will be happy.
Yeah, I think I think there's been a weird combination or almost like a conflation of Remnant 2 and Dragon's Dogma 2 with the lots of hidden stuff. I think there will be some, but I don't know how far we should expect, how far those go. Remnant had like at least 3 hidden classes, at least, if not more.
Yeah,
And
it was pretty insane.
Yeah, I think with this, especially when you look at how much the classes matter, having a hidden one or more than one or a ton would really screw things up because you could get people really mad that they were hidden in a weird way. So I don't know how many they'll have. We'll have to see.
One thing that I don't know if I'm worried, but like I do expect, like I like in these types of games, I love to make a character and be like, this character, I specialize this character into something. And I'm just kind of worried about like the safe slot limit of not being able to beat the game and make another character and have that character stay in end game or whatever,
and you can't.
That's the one thing. Yeah, they want us to just like do all the vocations on one character, and that's fine. They made it easier to do that. You don't get punished for doing all the vocations, but I love to make
Rise of
multiple
Ronin is
characters.
the same way.
That's the games. Yeah.
They've got the one save system, and Dragon's Dogma, I can talk about it, because the preview, and I'm reviewing it. That's it.
Yeah.
And
I'm curious about one thing with Dragon's Dogma, actually, though, on that note, because in the first one, you could actually do New Game Plus without restarting or without completing the game. So you could save your character, quit to the main menu, and then begin a new game with that character.
Oh, yeah, and Dark Arisen, right? Like do a hard
Arisen.
mode right off the bat, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the expansion. I don't believe that was in the original, though. Over. Like the day and date.
It might not have been. I don't remember.
Either do I. But I, for some reason, feel that was added during that expansion or as a post-patch.
It's possible.
Yeah.
With Dragon's Dogma as well, I almost said 2, but Dragon's Dogma 2 as well. It is cool that I personally think, from what I've seen, whatever you make in the character generator, again, this is not exactly representative of Rise of Ronin. In Dragon's Dogma, whatever you make shows up. Pretty much. Now,
and there's
definitely some it is detailed. It may not be as detailed as that character creator, which is pretty ridiculous, but but they show up, which is really cool. So what you make is sort of what you get, and they animate the way you would expect. I will say, the character creator, I can talk about that because it's the demo. There were 2 things I really was not happy with on the character creator. We do all this shit. We're able to make this character. They got a blemish on their right nipple, and one nipple goes up. Yeah, like you could do the craziest shit, right? So detailed. But they all walk the same, other than the bow-leggedness and the lean forwardness. Right. And I had a really hard time making somebody walk with the feel of what they look like.
The swag that you want. Or
the swag that I want, yeah. So, there's a game called Dreamfall, old game, but the girl had the walk that the hippie walk, very hips. Yeah. Like some women walk that certain way. Some guys walk, with like this all the time when they're at the gym. Some don't. Some walk very studiously. I was in the character generator, man. I leaned forward and I looked like I was running somewhere at all times. Like you get that really lean forward, or you get the guy who is leaned way back. Yeah. Where you're like, dude, nobody walks like this. Yeah, so I got to admit, man, I was sort of hoping for like maybe 5 or 6 gaits that you could choose. Like the guy, I don't want the exaggerated swagger of a Spider-Man, where he's like, where he's got his own inner music. But would have been cool to have a couple, just because there's so much. You know, you get in there,
right,
and
you're spoiled for choice. So the instances where you're not, that stands out.
Yeah, you got like there was a lot of stuff. Also, did you guys? I've been really unhappy with character creators lately that they haven't progressed in the hair department. They might look better, but there's still only like 30 or 40 choices, and I quickly see 150 choices anywhere I go.
Right.
And so I was looking for like the, and this is in both games, sort of like the Viking movie braided center versus the flat center with the braids. And I was, you know, for the guys. And I was like, oh, damn, in one game it was missing it, one game had it. I would love to see a game where they let you modify the hair in some way.
Customize the hair, like kind of just be a barber a little bit. Yeah,
Rise of Ronin does have a insane character generator. It is pretty insane in that way. It does allow you to layer hair, which is pretty cool, but it doesn't let you make the style that I mean, like where you watch a movie and what's the movie? Chronicles of Riddick. You have the Necrons, the bad guys or whatever, and
right.
The guy who plays in The Boys, Carl Urban's in it, and he's got a very unique kind of like braided Viking weird mix, and I sort of would like that kind of stuff. I think that would be cool.
I saw another complaint, which is completely valid, and someone brought it up here, is like the you don't have a lot of choice with pawns' voices and your own. You know, you have one male and female for each. But and this might not be the case at all, but this might be a positive in the game where maybe they recorded a ton of, you know, varied dialogue. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they did. They also let you pitch it, which means they're sort of cheating on that way, which I think
it's better pitching than the what's it called? There's another game where the pitching Harry Potter. Remember Hogwarts where Legion, where they started sounding like AI? Yeah.
So I did notice in Dragon's Dogma, if you repeat it, it reminded me of watching the old Space Harrier game where it turns into just sounds. So he's like, and I started hearing warbleness, like a warbly sound, because they're obviously like compressing some stuff. I would like to have more voices. Yeah. I think for the pawns, I think that, I don't know how many they've recorded. They said they were going to make it so that like you don't have near the repeats. And here's the thing, whenever they say that, it's a challenge to somebody to get it to repeat, including myself. So I wonder how many what they mean versus a normal gamer. A normal gamer who plays, who doesn't try to get the pawn to react 1,000 times at a river's edge to hear the 1,000 samples about the river edge. It'll be interesting to hear how many they have. I bet you there's a lot. I could check now that I think about it. But it's cool. I thought they were okay. I don't know about you guys. You don't speak very much in Dragon's Dogma, so it doesn't matter so much for you. You're pretty silent. You're pretty silent in those games, right? It's mostly those pawns. And the pawns still have the I take a lot of Paxil sound to their voice. Like there's not, you know, even when they were on fire in the other game, they'd be like, I am on fire. There's something very
we gotta remember
of the pawns.
They also revealed something, right, with the Dragon's Plague, which is supposed to change the pawns' attitudes and the way they talk. So there's that too. You know, there's that modification as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool to see, because you've got those, and then you've got Forbidden West, which
that's coming out.
And Forbidden West is it comes out here soon, but Forbidden West is weird because it's so far beyond the other two when it comes to presentation, but then it doesn't have near the, you know, the like organic. I don't think I like Forbidden West, but I wouldn't think of it as organic in the same way Dragon's Dogma is.
It's more gamified. It's more gamified than Dragon's Dogma for sure.
Maybe easier for them to even present things in that game than it is in Dragon's Dogma, where you don't know if a guy's going to be next to a river and some rocks you can smash 1 second, or if he's going to spawn
how stuff is going to interact and collision and all that stuff. It's probably hell.
Do you guys remember? I was good because you were talking about dialogue. Do you remember in Biomutant where you could adjust the amount of talking? I think it was the narrator and like a companion or something.
I remember the narrator being turned down. You can stop the narrator.
Yeah, and you had like 3 settings to change. I wonder, that would be sort of cool if you could customize how much the pawns talk to you, if you like them talking a lot versus.
I do. Straight up, I don't care. fucking loved them in number 1. I loved them repeating themselves because to me they are like your unfortunate cousin who was doused in
a bit like
ice water as a
simpletons?
child. Yeah. I mean, there was some brain damage as a kid, and he shows up and he's like, wolves are afraid of fire. I'm okay with that. I'm okay if this dude is saying the same thing.
One of the first things when you get introduced to pawns in the first one, they do one guy introducing them, like the first guy in town, and he's like, they are like humans, but they don't have
soulless.
that. They're not. They're soulless.
They don't have the spark.
Right?
Yeah.
So they're a little bit robotic.
Yeah. I was fine with it. And in this one, I don't think they've actually changed too much of that. I think it'll just be way more, that's great.
That was also like an important element of like the overall themes and narrative of the game, where you did actually end up having pawns that did actually grow souls through the game.
What I like, I saw in one of the previews, the pawn was like, one of my former masters only hires woman pawns for some reason.
Yeah. I'll be that person. Anybody in chat, if you have any questions about these games, pop off. Also, which one of these 3 are you getting? Or if you got Outcast, or any others I'm missing. I'm sure I'm missing some. Yeah, I saw that. I think also there's some comments about Beast. If you only get Beastmen or Beast characters as NP, I believe they say some stuff about party makeup. Cool. I think seems to be
and generally more discussed. Like if you're playing a sorcerer and you have a sorcerer main pawn, they will learn like
spells faster.
The way. Oh, okay. Or the way you fight. I don't know if that's true or not. It's
definitely been said. That's what I thought it meant, was that if you have like a sorcerer and you cast fireball a bunch and they're learning fire, they'll either get it faster or maybe. I know you can team up. So I don't know. Maybe you can't.
The multicasting. Yeah.
There's a lot of
I mentioned
cool
this
stuff,
already, but like one of my most enduring memories of the first game is spending, I don't know, like an hour in the Rift just sifting through people's pawns, because so many of them just were either like women in bikinis or just these horrible sort of mismatches. So trying to like get something or someone that looked relatively normal and also had like a decent combination of or useful skills or something was often like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
I mean, there's a reason why the fairy tale is Beauty and the Beast, right? That's all we got. You either got beauties or beasts, man. I mean, not lying. That's sort of what my brain goes to. I make me normal. Most of the time, I'll try to make a beast too, but I make myself normal. And then when I'm looking for pawns, I don't want the normal-looking pawn. I want the pawn I can identify in the middle of a battle when 70 other villagers are there. I want the guy who looks like a friggin' idiot who's on fire. He's wearing mismatched clothes. Frankenstein's monster. So I can go, that's mine, that's mine.
Have you seen some of the pawns people made, dude? Like,
oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness, you're gonna get some crazy ones.
They made some good ones. They've already got Riddick. Yeah. They've already got goblins, like you guys had said. They've got a bunch of different ones, which is cool, man.
Yeah, so many.
Yeah, Khal Drogo's in there. They did a bunch of politicians are in there. It'll be fun to just run around with these guys.
You just get like Bernie Sanders.
My only Trump and Biden in my squad, bro.
Yep. You're solely right-wing squad, and then you're solely left-wing squad, right? Your right wing will be all fighters, very militant in what they do. The left will be let's cast some spells, man. That'd be amazing.
The vape master. The
vape master. There you go. That's right there. It's your incredibly left-leaning spellcasters, the vape master. He's like, everybody's high as fuck when he's around. He's just like, dude, this game's awesome.
Speaking of, the incense class, the one with the it's actually called the Thurible, like the sensor thing.
Correct, the sensor.
Okay.
The Thurible. That's a big word I learned this week.
Big in Warhammer.
Yeah, so the Thurible class. Do you think you can deal damage with that thing, or is it all like stuns and?
I thought you can. I thought we talked about this. I thought.
Well, I mean, you can deal damage, but it's not going to be very much.
Yeah, it's not at all.
It is mainly support.
Okay.
Yeah, but like the way like buffing your pawns, I saw, dude, the damage they do is incredible. Yeah. Plus, you can have other enemies attack an enemy. So even if all your pawns are dead, you can still do stuff. Yeah.
I'm gonna get a drink. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, man, it's crazy because once these 3 come out, not just these 3, but once these big games come out, it's gonna be really weird to live in a post world for all these games. I'm gonna have to identify what's the big next game that I'm looking forward to, because Dragon's Dogma 2, just a while ago, we were in the Discord and we were like, will it ever happen? And it feels like it's fast. It feels like it was like it is happening. And
I mean, you and I have been that way
since we
started.
Since we started
like
the
8 years
podcast,
ago.
I think.
Yeah.
I went back and
Yeah.
looked because we were trying to figure out the first time I had ever said Pixel Peeper. And so last night I was looking through all the old podcasts with Cadiz, and one of the first ones him and I did was Dragon's Dogma. And just like
it felt like one of those games forgotten to time. Like it's like Alpha Protocol or like KOTOR and stuff, where it's like, oh man, imagine
where
we get
everybody would talk about it, but it just didn't have the juice or whatever. And I remember when online came out, we were all like, does that mean that they are supposed that they want to do something? Because why would they do an online game only in Japan? Are they testing something? And and then it was like announced, and it feels like time is, I mean, fast.
Yeah, when was it announced?
I don't know. I was
last
actually
year.
just think, was it last year? Yeah,
very fast.
Yeah, because remember, it got. We found the leak came, and then they said we have an unannounced game that'll be our biggest game ever, and then they announced it. We all knew it was already coming. Yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah, it's exciting, man.
Things happened really fast. Like,
I mean, it's weird though too, because once these come out, you have a Kojima game in the Death Stranding, which I don't think is hitting near as high as the original, just because it's a sequel. And then you have like what, Witcher 4 maybe, or whatever the new Witcher game is. I guess that one, Elder Scrolls, but that's not even. We don't even, that's just sort of known. What we got a trailer for Elder Scrolls, right? It was just going over wasn't it just a CGI?
That was just a teaser, yeah.
Yeah. And we got a teaser
just a title.
The other one, Outer Worlds, the Obsidian one. Oh, I guess Avowed would be one. If Avowed comes out
Avowed
this
is
year.
still coming.
Mm-hmm. Well, isn't it? They announced the release date, no? But they want to fix up combat and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, they want to fix up combat, and like, when are you going to start talking about it? If you are, because you also want to subtly warn other competitors to not release when you are. So at some point, you do need to say, this is our spot, because you can bet companies, if they have far enough time, will be like, well, we certainly don't want to release at this exact spot. And, we want to move around. And then we also have Alone in the Dark coming out.
Oh, yeah.
And South Park.
Hopefully this one has a better second half of the game than the other
Alone
one
in
on
the
the
Dark?
360. Yeah.
Yeah, the Alone in the Dark, the flashing his trench coat inventory, right?
The collecting snakes
Dude,
around the wall.
that had the greatest starting for an
Yeah.
absolute.
It sold me in the start, and then
What's the first-person horror game? Or it was third-person, then it got a first-person patch, and there's two of them.
Oh, yeah.
I've reviewed them.
The Bethesda ones.
What are
Evil
those, man?
Evil Within.
Evil Within.
Yeah, Evil Within.
Is
2
it
got
Evil
like
Within?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
They I don't know why I even brought. Oh, because Evil Within reminds me in the feel I got from that Alone in the Dark. For some reason, those two seem to sort of resonate with me in a particular way, and both of them let me down. Yeah, I don't know, man. I remember opening my trench coat and driving a car and going around a park in that original Alone in the Dark for the 360 and being like, wow, this is pretty cool. And then it just fell. Man, it just went to shit. It's too bad. It's one of those games that's like, it wasn't even front loaded. I think it feels like they just didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, it felt like they either got bored or ran out of resources, or I swear.
What if you did that? What if you woke up and you guys are all working and you come in and you're just like, yeah, that's.
Literally, it was like a Stark, like.
We took it as far as we
Speaking
could
of
go.
Stark, that reminds me of like Game of Thrones, where he's like having you have writer's block suddenly. You're like, I'm halfway through this story. We're screwed. Use AI, man. Jump onto old ChatGPT, let it finish it for you. What other big games do we have? We got Rise of Ronin. We got
Stalker 2.
Stalker 2, yeah. Is Stalker 2 coming out? Have they done any more trailers? Anything? What was the last thing we heard from Stalker 2?
The last thing we heard, they didn't they do something a couple of days ago?
Oh.
It was the remasters, right? Like it was the
remasters,
the remasters, yeah.
Yeah, Stalker 2 will be very cool. I don't know where it's going, but like I don't know how crunchy that game will be. It feels like it's going to be crunchier than any of the Metros, and Metro Exodus was somewhat crunchy.
What happened with 4A Games? I heard they're not making Metro anymore.
We'll talk about them in a second, but yeah, They also, I think, so we'll just jump to that. Embracer and Sabre split, and I believe Sabre, the news is that Sabre took 4A with them. So let me look real quick here. So yesterday, Sabre stated, okay, we bought ourselves out of Embracer. Sabre leaves Embracer. Let's see who they took. Then a second story said that they're taking 4A. Tripwire remains an Embracer. So Tripwire didn't leave. Sabre purchased independence. Tripwire is not a subsidiary anymore, remains under Embracer. Sabre could still be working on KF3, but it seems unlikely. What's KF3?
Killing Floor 3?
Oh. Of course, here we go. Other subsidiaries Embracer has put under Sabre. Bye, Johnny. Will be retained, and that's 4A, Tripwire, Aspire, Beamdog, Tuxedo Studios, Demerge, Shiver, Snapshot, and 34 Big Things. And it says, Embracer's put under... Other subsidiaries Embracer's put under Sabre will be retained. So that means they're staying with Embracer. Looks like.
Man.
That whole Embracer thing just fucked a lot of companies, man.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Under this new deal, Sabre Studios, along with 3D Realms, Slipgate. Slipgate was a pretty good game. Do you guys remember playing? I played that with some of you guys.
I played that with you.
Azralin. Yeah.
With you and Azralin and this other guy, yeah. And we did
Wasn't it Takedown?
Like,
oh, no, it was Enwiz or whatever, the guy who used to do Doom.
The pro
Quake.
guy.
Yeah.
And we did like 100% extra speed, and we could set all these things to make it like a Quake, right?
So fun,
Rockets
man.
only.
Oh, dude, yeah, it was rockets only. It was super. I remember Azralin was not happy about those choices, but I was like, this
really
fuels
fun,
my Adrenaline needing body. Like, I loved it.
Yeah.
It's New World, Mad Head Games, Nimble Giant, Sandbox Strategies, Fractured Byte, and Digit will be moved with them, with Sabre. So some are staying, some are going. Big split, man. But so it looks like, if I'm reading this right, 4A stays with Embracer, because it says under Sabre.
Good thing or bad thing, or I don't know.
Well, you would want them to leave with Sabre. So give me a second. Okay, Jason Schreiber and Bloomberg have found out the deal is worth $500 million, reported because Sabre has bought 4A and Zen. So this is just a bad statement. It doesn't read right. So
okay.
But then elsewhere it says Tripwire did stay. Regardless, we'll just say it this way: 4A and Zen Studios have gone away, and they're with. They left with Sabre. So there we go. So that's a positive. 4A is now with
positive.
Sabre.
Okay, so hopefully maybe we still get another Metro game.
Yeah, what was the last one? Exodus, right? Exodus. RT. Exodus ray tracing. Right?
Yeah, the enhanced.
And the enhanced costs more money, right? Or not more, but more. Like it was another game, was it not?
Yeah, but it was free. But it was free, but it had native ray tracing, so only you couldn't run it without an RTX card. Yeah.
All right, not bad. Thanks, guys. If you're trying to correct me, you're 30 seconds late. I apologize. Yeah, we got it figured out. There was a lot of adjustments that went on. Johnny still hasn't come back. Let me go look at his. He was having problems this morning. Oh, he's off of Discord and everything. So he's got some kind of
internet
London's
issues.
Been nuked. Putin has stepped into the war zone. What else do we have?
We have
Ayuden Chronicles
Helldiver.
coming next month.
What is it?
Ayuden Chronicles, the successor to Suikoden.
Suikoden or
Like
Suikoden?
JRPG.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an action JRPG, right? Action combat?
No, it's turn-based.
Because there was one side scroller Ayuden Chronicles thing came on Game Pass.
That one was action based. That was basically
like a side scroller,
an offshoot.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one. We were talking about something else though. Real quick.
Helldivers.
Yeah, Helldivers. So you played some Helldivers. Any errors?
Any what?
Any errors or any issues, or has it been fairly solid for you for Helldivers?
No, I've been enjoying it. I like how much content they're putting out and like new missions and
have you tried
monsters.
the mechs?
No, I'm not level 25 yet. That's my goal is to get to level 25 so I can.
Well, you can hop on with me and I'll drop one for you if you want to try.
Yeah, sure.
That's what I was going to say because somebody who just started yesterday, Snuggles, was playing with Turim. Turim's level 99 and everything. I just assume whenever he plays a game, somehow he'll be level 99 already. But he he was already. He must have been dropping mechs then, because they were also having mechs in theirs. So you can only drop them if you're 25, but you can use them if somebody drops one. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can use them with somebody. Yeah, and they dropped a new battle pass. The new mission is pretty cool because I got to just go full on sentry build and just put sentries everywhere, which was fun. Turrets and
automated
stuff,
turrets.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, just setting up. I've only really fought bugs, but for the first time I started fighting bots, and it just feels like a completely different game, completely different stratagems that I bring in. I actually use the mortar, so it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I've heard people going back. Like, it seems like for some reason either people love them or hate them, because I've heard a couple people who absolutely do not like the way it feels to fight the robots, and then others who seem to feel like it changes it up enough
because it's difficult.
They enjoy it.
Yeah,
yeah, because it is difficult, right? It is actually more difficult.
I actually find them easier. It has to be. I actually find them easier than the bugs.
How?
I mean, they're set up.
For one thing, they're much slower. They're much easier to run away from than the bugs.
So you don't find them easier to fight. You find them easier to run away from.
Well, they are, because it's easier to fight them that way, because then you can break line of sight, and then you can regroup and flank, and then hit them again and hit and run.
All I'll say,
it's easier to do missions with them.
Yeah. All I'll say is, like, if you're used to playing the game one way, it's a completely different strategy. It feels like a different game. That's probably why.
Bugs,
I can see why.
With the bugs, you have enemies like the hunters that can hunt you down. It's a lot more difficult to outrun those than it is to outrun anything that the automatons have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's cool because not cool that some people dislike it, but it is cool that you can sort of pick and choose which type of enemy to go against. A lot of the people I've talked to seem to be pretty happy with the game overall now. I know that yesterday there's bug central for one person, and then the other person was having really nothing going on. And sometimes it seems really attached to if you jump in with 3 people, because they were jumping in with 3, it was causing issues. They were jumping in with just 2, and it just seemed to never have issues. If like they put a team together, if it was randoms, it didn't have as many problems. It's just,
you can also, with the bugs, you can also shoot down the the drop ships that come in and drop the reinforcements. So you can actually break the reinforcement drop before it arrives. You cannot prevent a bug breach before it breaches with the bugs.
Yeah, unless it was caused by the spewer. You can kill them before they spew the gas.
Spewers. Are you guys just naming shit randomly? Is that what it's called?
Not spewers, sorry. Spewers are actually but I wasn't even thinking of them. I was thinking of the other guys that actually start a bug breach or whatever. But it's very hard to stop them. But I got it once where I stopped them before they.
Because that sounds like me playing a multiplayer game. It doesn't matter what they name the enemy. I've got a weird, big head. And everybody just knows.
I call the spewers, I call them spitters because they spit poison, right?
Yeah.
And then the chargers are chargers because they charge at
Johnny,
you.
is your internet cool?
Yeah, I'm back. I had to reboot. Sorry about that.
No worries.
No, the stupid warriors, the bug warriors that annoy me to death. I call them the sword guys because they look like they have swords for claws, and they just
I was playing not Bloodborne. Back 4 Blood, the shooter, Back 4 Blood with people, and I'm absolutely sure nobody's named what I named them, but it was like I name what they look like because therefore you don't have to parse twice. You're just like split head. That dude has a split head. That's for sure him.
When we played those games, we always had names for the different enemies. We had tall boys.
Yeah. Especially those Left 4 Dead games or Back 4 Blood.
Yeah.
It's
it's not even close to what they're named the abomination from underneath the sallow hallow. And you're like,
the fat dude,
tall dude,
fat dude that blows up.
Fat guy. Everybody knew what fat guy meant because there's no other fat guys. They're all friggin' zombies. So it's fat guy. Yeah.
It is weird that they removed the encyclopedia from the first game, because in the first game you did actually get an encyclopedia that listed all the different enemy types and stuff.
Interesting. There's a lot of hidden stuff.
That's not in
the game.
Helldivers too.
There's a lot of hidden stats and hidden shit they don't really just tell you.
Yeah.
Also,
there's a lot of stuff that's obfuscated, unfortunately.
Maybe it just means player housing later, and you have your little library in your player house. Or do you play
I'm
your
expecting
ships?
them to let
Their
us
ship.
customize our ships, like
That's
because
exactly. I was just, but it also goes against the way it plays, like the idea of it too, doesn't it?
yeah, like we're
Like, 'cause
spreading them out so we're all
you're
close,
just-
we're
you're
all-
just
kind
grist
of
for
you
the-
kind of can
mill.
customize it. It's just that the customizations are tied to upgrades. So
Yeah,
for
yeah,
instance,
that's
when
samples.
you like upgrade your radar, you start getting more people working the comm stations on the bridge
I see.
I didn't
That's
even
cool.
notice that.
and
I
stuff
didn't
like
know.
that.
Yeah.
By the way, did you guys talk about the mechs or the new flying bugs?
Yeah, I did not encounter
Mechs
flying
they
bugs
talked
yet,
about.
and I'm
Okay.
almost level 25, but I haven't been able to buy the stratagem yet.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Okay.
What about the mechs or the flying guys? Like, what have you liked or
no,
disliked about 'em?
they added some flying bugs without mentioning them in the patch. So when people saw them, they were like
that's
freaking
cool.
out.
Right.
Yeah, like a
That's
little
awesome.
surprise. Yeah,
Did you find that they
They're
were
also
easier, harder?
I haven't played against them myself, so I don't really have an opinion there.
Okay. What are we gonna say, Silver? Go for it.
they're also teasing the potentially impending arrival of a third enemy type, which was the third enemy type in the original game.
In the
which was
original
the
game?
What?
the Illuminates.
Oh, what were they? Like what type of?
They're kind of you're not that familiar with 40K Warhammer, right?
A little bit only.
But they're a little bit like a Helldiver sort of version of the Eldar in that they use a lot of laser,
if that's what they were.
Yeah.
like laser weaponry, energy shields.
Like Protoss.
They're very squishy. But
Ooh,
yeah, like
okay.
the Protoss basically are. So yeah, from StarCraft, yes.
So they have
exactly.
Zerg, Protoss, and bots instead of
And if they keep going, I'm sure more. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
If, like they can add new stuff. I want to answer this. Red Racer patron, also a donation to the patron, $20. How do you all keep interested in games while you're talking and playing them? This has actually come up a couple times. That is probably why it's sort of onomatopoeia in a weird psychological way. So that doesn't make sense. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about them because we do like them. I have a feeling we just wouldn't if we like. It sort of fits because that's what we enjoy talking about. We also talk
Do you
about
think he
science.
means maybe like when we're chatting in the voice chat
No,
and
he means
playing it? Okay.
distinctly. I can tell because it's for all of us during the podcast. He's talking about like how do you do a podcast but then also play, and then like doing two podcasts. How do you still play? How do you still talk about it and stay interested? Do you burn out? All the stuff that I think a lot of people would if they're bouncing off
It's
all
a
that.
complicated answer because it's so variable because it depends on the games. Definitely there are times where you start to feel burnout, and then there are stuff you can do when you start to feel that burnout, like I'm starting to feel this gameplay loop in this huge open world game or whatever starting to feel repetitive, so I'm gonna go with a palate cleanser, small indie game or whatever, and play
so
that
much choice.
for a couple hours or whatever today, and then I'll go back to the open world game tomorrow or whatever.
That's why like I'm excited. Like after playing Final Fantasy and Yakuza, which were both very gamified games, I love them, but they're obviously very gamified, like points, and you get that to do this, and like it's very set in stone, the rule sets. I'm excited to go from something like that to like Dragon's Dogma, which is like the complete opposite. It's nice.
I
to
do
like
not know
have
what
a
will happen
variety.
if that ever happens to me. It has not yet. I can play
Like
like
getting
10
burnt out?
shooters in a row and not get shooter burn.
Yeah, I played all the Yakuza games without even getting
like
burnt out.
they're I've just been I didn't try that. That seems pretty forced, and it seems like I would get burnout if I did that. Like I would, but I've done KOTOR 1, 2, and 3, and at the end played 1 all over again. Like went back and just started 1 right at the ending. I'm okay with that. But I luckily haven't had that yet. I will say I also play random. I mean, I think we all play random games, right? None of us, that's probably why we're here, because if we did play very specific games, like Go Burns used to have this issue. If he was playing a very specific game, it wouldn't be that he'd burn out, but he didn't have a lot. He'd be like, I'm just doing GTA or whatever. Even if he loved GTA, if there was nothing around it to react to, there wasn't much to talk about. I think we all play pretty much everything. There's the only I was trying to think like what is a genre I wouldn't touch at all? Like
probably no, even a sports game, like I would
I
play
touch
like
a sports game.
UFC or
And if
something. I'd touch
NBA
it.
just came out, by the way, on Game Pass
Yeah,
last week.
Yeah, I would touch an NBA. Like I don't usually gravitate towards them, but it's not like I would never touch them. I can't think of, I mean, baseball, but like that's very specific.
Yeah.
Rhythm games are about the only ones that I don't touch
I
because
love
I suck
rhythm
at them.
games.
You mean like
completely.
what would be a rhythm game? Not
Yeah,
musical,
like,
Xbox
because
you have
that's
to-
rhythm.
I mean, it is kind of music because it is the stuff where you have to hit the button to coincide with the rhythm as it's like passing through whatever.
I guess I
Guitar
don't see a lot of
Hero,
rhythm games.
like
So
Guitar Hero or
The
whatever. yeah.
Xbox one that just came out, that got shadow dropped. The one,
oh,
the
Hi-Fi Rush?
Hi-Fi Rush is
Boy, if that's a
game.
rhythm game, I'm all for those though. I mean, that seems pretty detailed for a rhythm game, right? Because there's like a lot
Yeah,
of
that's a
stuff going on.
very action heavy.
You know what I was
rhythm
thinking
game.
when you said rhythm game? I was thinking track and field that I used to play on the SNES. You know, be like fucking.
or
That's
co-op
not. That's
or
not.
track
that's
and
not
field
even
I will
rhythm.
play.
That's just. I
Because
know you will.
that's just
why I
button
was-
mashing. Yeah.
Yeah. Top Spin 5 people are talking about. Yeah, it's so crazy. I don't know if you guys saw this, but like a lot of NFL, NBA games, they don't improve a ton, but they improve a little bit each time, maybe a little bit of graphics here and there. Man, the Top Spin games, those fuckers, they're just really good at not doing shit, man. Those characters look Dreamcast level, man. I mean, they're fucking rough, and I love tennis. And
Yeah.
you see like one of the tennis players, one of the most popular ones, they show up and it looks like a baby doll, like plastic, nowhere near even
Like
last gen
Liza P
graphics.
face. No
Way
touch.
worse than Liza P. Way
And Top
worse.
Spin
Than
really struggled matching Virtua Tennis 2.
Yeah.
Virtua Tennis.
I think they're just gone though, right? I mean, nobody does tennis. Only Top Spin does tennis, right? Anyway, I think there's
Yeah.
one tennis game.
There's one tennis game now, yeah, basically.
You know, I
forget
love
the
them
name
when
of
they're
it.
mini games in other games more
Absolutely,
than
you give them a lot of leeway,
when,
right?
no.
You go and play like tennis in GTA 5, and you're all whatever. It's fun and it's
Yeah.
cool, and you
Yeah.
give it leeway.
Same
you know?
thing with golf, yeah.
Same thing with golf. Absolutely. Like the even fishing, we just talked about this yesterday, I think, where it's like if fishing in Valhalla's there, is it great? No, not at all. But sometimes it's fun to just sit back and you're listening to the, chortle of the stream go by and you're like,
Yeah.
dude, this is
Yeah.
I'm doing something
Or like
inside.
like Queen's Blood from FF. I
Yeah.
completed all of that, but if it was its own game, I don't think I would really gravitate
if it's
towards
its own game, it would
you know?
suck balls, man. If it was its own game, because it's not even that detailed. But in the
It's not even
game,
that
in the
deep,
game,
but
it's detailed.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And adds its
And I
own
mean-
story and everything. And
Yeah,
yeah.
and people around the world who play it and stuff. Go ahead. Sorry,
Yeah.
Sabre.
Just in multiplayer, the golf and the tennis are just actually pretty fun in Grand Theft Auto.
I think they're
well
pretty
made,
fun in
those
single player. They're
minigames.
good games. I mean, internally, they're good games. They're not. They don't have the perfection that like Top Spin has, but Top Spin looks worse than GTA 5 does. Like I don't understand how that company. They remind me of the first time I played Game Dev Story and spent the least I could on a port. Like that's what Top Spin is. Remember when it'd be like, how many points in graphics? Zero.
Zero.
And zero. And you hope that you make money, and you're just like, dude, that's Top Spin for you.
Yeah.
What other games would we not touch? So Rhythm is up there, at least for maybe not like absolutely gravitating towards. Is there? I'm not a big collectible card game on digital at all. I've tried a lot. I even tried
I think
the
actually
popular one that came out.
RTS has to be a really good one for me to jump into right now.
You mean you will, but it has to be like the Age of
Yeah,
Empires
it has
4,
to
like a.
it has to be different, interesting, rather than catering
fair.
to the very hardcore.
Did you try? Did you
like
try
that's-
the video game version of Sentinels of the Multiverse?
No.
Me, I did. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you
I
like
li-
that?
I liked it somewhat, but for those kind of games and the superhero kind of stuff, I loved Sentinels, and it's got a bunch of expansions, I believe, too. Because I remember when I went in, there was a bunch of. It wasn't detailed enough for whatever reason to grab me. There's something about video game card games. I don't know, man. It's really hard to grab me. It's either too numbery, and it's not. And even those guys didn't do it. I told you guys, at some point, somebody's going to make the game for me, which is when I throw that card down, it fucking explodes. People come out, 3D animations come out. You know what I mean?
That was not a part of the game. Yes,
that was not a part of the game. But I supported the guy who did it because he is a smaller dev, and I like the card game version as well. So yeah, and Talisman, by the way, too. Silver. I do play a shit ton of Talisman digital as well as cards. You know, somebody comes over, you don't want to spend too. It's not a long game, but if you have a lot of expansions, Talisman can take up the entire kitchen floor in how big the space is. So it's nice playing a digital version of it.
Does the video game version of Magic these days do anything?
I have absolutely no clue where Magic is on physical, electrical, spiritual. I do not track Magic at all, man. Like,
yeah,
and
I'm pretty sure that's still going.
No, it's still going. We were just trying to figure out if the
Has done anything with like animations
PC
or anything
version.
when you put down a card or
I
like
don't think so.
to sort of make that.
Did you guys play Marvel
Tyson.
Snap? Did you play Marvel Snap?
No.
It got me for a day. I played it for a day because you could get other characters that like had 3D. So if you move your tablet, the card had like a hologram. But then it died.
Yeah.
Like that was all. I was like, boom, 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 boom. I saw those. I was like, that's pretty cool. And then the next day, I just was like, drag.
Yeah,
uninstall.
I heard good things about it. People
It's
really
very,
like that
very positive about that game. Yeah, but there's a mentality around those games that I don't know what it is, but I don't have it, and nothing against it. There's that one is good. There's a couple of the 3 kind of games where there's 3 things to track. Well, a lot of games are like that anyway. If you look at them, it'll be like home base, battle, center.
It's always rule of 3, right?
It's always rule of 3. It's just like League of Legends. I'll have like 3 lanes or whatever you guys call them. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
You gotta.
Go on.
No, I was just gonna say something stupid like in Zelda, like you gotta stun the boss 3 times or hit his tail 3 times.
It is the rule of 3. I mean,
yeah. You can like predict it, right? Because you see like 3 slots or something.
Dude, it's just humans. That's just the way 3 strikes are out. Everything is 3. Once it starts, you can't break it. But go ahead. What were you gonna say, Johnny?
I was gonna say I like the Beneath the Orisa.
Orisa.
There was a recent card one that had like animations tied to stuff that you could just, if you didn't see the cards, it would look like you were playing a game with like
there was another one too.
Cool.
The Tainted Grail. Remember Tainted
Grail was good too. Yeah,
so
very good.
Yeah.
Oh, the one. Okay, I will say there's. Well, see, it's not a card game because this has full 3D animations. But there's the Cthulhu one that was in the Steam demo that was awesome. Something Mystery of the Depths or something like that. It was Cthulhu. You put a card down, like a tentacle would come out and stuff like that. Was awesome.
That's cool.
But those are really Slay the Spire at that point, or Darkest
very
Dungeon.
much so.
Those are pretty Darkest Dungeon style.
Yeah, Slay the Spire seemed to have set a kind of like a
oh yeah, dude.
It was a setter. For
Monster Train.
Was.
A bunch of those.
Yeah, you'll hear Slay the Spire. You'll hear a couple of those pop up, but it's like the moment they do, I pretty much know. Where the game is, like what exact. And then I think with Darkest Dungeon, I don't know, maybe Slay the Spire did this. Darkest Dungeon had so many traits and weird random things that could happen. So now whenever I look at a game, I sort of I'll be like, that's like Darkest Dungeon. I know what that is. Those are fun. Those are, but I don't even know if they're not just card games to me. I don't know what you would term those as. They're like they are a card game, but there's also, no, I guess they are a card game. They're just a 2D animated card game. Right?
They got more stuff on it. Yeah, it's they certainly created.
It's like because Slay the Spire
Monster
is like,
Train.
Think about it,
sorry, that just came out. Monster Train was good.
Yeah.
Sorry,
but
like
if you think about it, like they're not card games like Hearthstone or something. It's like the cards are like the types of attacks. So it's like a turn-based game, but you have like a selection of attacks. Yeah, it's. Yeah.
There's something I like. I don't want to be the God Emperor with the cards. I want a guy on the screen that uses those cards for some reason.
Yes, Griftlands. Remember Griftlands?
Yeah, Griftlands was awesome. Yeah, Griftlands had some
sick.
issues. I should take that back. Griftlands had issues when it released. It is now awesome. Yeah, Griftlands. Yeah. Does that even exist anymore? Did Griftlands come out?
Oh, yeah. It came out. It came out.
It kind of like came out flaccid, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like the early access was a big hubbub, and then it kind of like
had a very
on the hallway.
Aesthetic. It was different.
It's like a fish.
But it's still it's amazing. Like it's 94% positive, 12,000 reviews. Like
12,000
it did well.
reviews.
Yeah,
Jesus,
Oh,
that
wow.
that
Okay,
means
that's better
12,000
than-
really lazy people took the time to write something. That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
there you go.
Right.
Yeah.
I wish 12,000 people would. Hey, by the way, go to my iTunes or Spotify and rate this podcast. Eternal
Let's
says
go.
Midnight Suns is coming to PS Plus. I think that's a good price, free.
Free.
Yeah, I got it.
Midnight
It had
Suns
some-
is one of
had
the
some good
best
stuff.
looking upfront games that falls the fuck apart so quickly that
Damn.
Except the beard. That didn't look like front or back.
Oh,
That
dude.
just didn't.
and the voices, oh man, some of them were bad. But I remember going into a spot and realizing that every single attack or every single event was going to be reinforcements are coming in, and you're like, oh my god, that repetitiveness killed me. Somebody brought up another game that I like, Hand of Fate. Did you guys ever play that one? It was like a
that. I did.
third person
Yeah.
It was a hybrid.
gauntlet style game with cards. Yeah, it was this.
Yeah.
It was this awesome mix, man. Those
But
are good.
you-
Those are good. I
they-
forgot about that.
You know the problem with that one? It's almost like neither part was amazing.
Absolutely.
So they were doing both things.
Yep.
I like the card part quite a lot, but like the action part, the camera sucked balls.
Yep.
And you had these puzzle segments, again, with the locked camera that you couldn't see stuff. And the combat was pretty much like Arkham derived. So that's the problem, right? When they try to do both, it's
Yeah, if you don't
It's
hit
tough.
on either and they don't merge or they don't merge together well.
it was
Jonathan
a
Lucas, thanks
really
for becoming
cool
a member.
idea. Oh
Yeah, it was a very cool idea. There's a lot of those ones that are like the mix that do well. But I think when we look at it, they're probably running a little lean. I also was wondering about this a couple days ago. I was like, are we at the end of the Slay the Spire type game being able to sell itself on that? And it does
I
feel
think
like
we're there. It
I think
needs
we're
to do something different. Remember, Inscription did some really unique stuff that shook the box. That was the one where you would play the card game, but you would also like stand up from the desk and look around. And then there was like breaking the fourth
damn.
wall
Yeah,
stuff,
breaking the
and
fourth
it would
wall. Okay.
the game would transform, like, you know. So that one was a good example of taking that formula but doing, you know, something really imaginative with it.
Yeah, I do think that when you like some of these genres, like even League of Legends, Johnny, I mean, I know you love it. It's been
Yeah.
around for like blah, blah, blah. But it does feel like some of these genres are right at that point where even if it's a new game and even if that game is awesome, it still has that same form fit that it feels like we've got
Yeah.
a lot of titles in that genre.
And it's also like these guys, Slay the Spire, or, you know, Monster Train, they've done this really well now that
yeah.
it's not good enough for you to just hit
Right.
those same beats, right?
Right.
You kind of have to go like, no, we're this, we're different,
Rub a
you know,
little
we're
juice
taking
on it.
that, and yeah, I mean, yeah,
Sounds gross, but
that's
that is what you
one
have
way
to do.
to put it. Yeah.
Any of these
good.
that you like, Silver? Like Slay the Spire kind of games? Or have you been a fan of any new ones? Silver's frozen. Dude, I just realized Silver's completely...
Oh.
Did you see that?
I thought
Dude,
he
I thought
was
Silver
just
was just pursing his lips, waiting to talk.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah,
like,
me
giving him
too.
a second.
That's so
and then now I
funny.
was like, asked him. And now, and Absy goes, "Where? Hey, best gaming podcast. Always perfect
Let's
without
go.
any issues."
Did you play Inscription, by the way?
Yeah, I
Did you
did play a
do
bit
that?
of Inscription. I did like what I played of Inscription. I actually did like. That was one of the few that stuck. That stuck
Yeah.
with me. But dude, I got to tell you, like, once I figure out not the meta, but once I figure out the cycle of the game, like guard defense,
Yeah.
you're gonna go you health this whatever.
And,
the game
dude,
has
I don't
to
know
really
about
add
you,
more.
But
Go ahead.
that thing they do with the map, so you have the over, you know, the
Overmap or
with
overworld.
like you guys were saying, the 3 paths. It's
Mhm.
like, okay, you know, I go here, I fight the elite to get the better loot.
Yeah,
It's almost like we need a different type of overworld. That's why I liked Tainted Grail, even though it had a forgettable name. The game itself was good, and you know, like you would explore
changing it up, and that's
in
the
a
thing.
3D. Yeah,
I'm sure the developers look at what works, and that's why we get the same feeling. The 1, 2, 3 boss. 1,
because
2,
it's
3
down to
boss.
the
Yeah,
it's
and then
always
they
the
can
3
balance
lanes.
all that stuff, and so it works. But yeah, I
Yeah.
want an open world card game. I don't know how it would work. But that kind of stuff would be awesome if you had the ability, or we've talked about it before. I love games where you're the bad guy. It's like, okay, what if you're the bad guy and you have to fight off enemies with your cards and their different heroes are coming at you, you know, and if you let the hero live and they escape, then they can come back leveled up or whatever, and maybe they are immune to one of the things you use to attack them. We haven't seen those kind of things. But again, it does feel like we are at that limit for a lot of these genres where it's like, I have no issue with them, by the way. I will talk about them with you, but when I play them, I'll be fine. So like you and I will talk about them in a podcast because that's what it is. But I'll still enjoy the fuck out of a new Assassin's Creed if it comes out, if it's good. You know, I'll still be like, hey,
I agree with that.
So
I think that's also part of, just to like come back full circle to that question of, you know, why do we keep talking about, like, you know, we don't get tired about talking and playing stuff. We seem to always be excited about the next thing. Yeah. We're not like stuck in Diablo 2. You know, no disrespect, but we see some people in our Discord sometimes, and they're like, you know, the old glory days. Oh, Diablo 2 is the best thing that ever happened. It was great, but I'm excited for the next, you know, PoE,
dude,
or like the next.
You'll see that, Johnny, where somebody will be like, well, why don't you just go back and play this? And you're like, well, why would I?
Yeah, because I played that.
Yeah,
so
exactly. It doesn't make a lot of sense to even say that. And by the way, the rose-tinted glasses thing is really hilarious to continually destroy because I play old games. So I'll have somebody be like, man, the old days, bro, I remember playing this game. And I'll be like, dude, I played that game last week.
Bro,
and
you don't remember, bro.
You do not remember what is going on in that game. Like, that game had its issues. They've all had issues. Every game does. It's like...
It's the type of thing with this certain subject where people remember the good stuff of something. So sometimes, you know, and I always bring up WoW as a good example where they do too much QOL. Like, some QOL is good, but they do too much.
Absolutely.
That ruins the spirit of the game.
Yep.
But they remember like the good stuff that got replaced and not like the bad stuff that got improved, right?
Yep.
So they're stuck in that, you know.
How many, and all those times where it just happened, Silver and I were talking about Dragon's Dogma, and it's like, oh, the N+ game or whatever, where you'll remember the patched up version, and you'll forget the unpatched version we lived with for a fucking year and a half where it deleted your system files or something. It's just,
oh my goodness.
And honestly, that's probably a little psychology in there of
sure.
Why hold on to the abusive bad moments if you can.
It's like thinking of the good old days. You know, you don't remember the
you
bad
don't remember
stuff.
that you had a fight with your best
or like,
friend
oh my God,
over
like
a pizza
I want,
slice the day before.
Like, I want to be,
you also,
you know, when some people go like, hey, I want to be a kid again and not have any worries and stuff. And I'm like, oh, do you also not want to have money or any like say in anything and
or
freedom
saying
at
anything?
all?
Do you know why it was carefree? Because the moments where it was carefree was the sheer small amounts of time your mom and dad weren't there making you mow the fucking lawn or do what they wanted you to do. Unless you're an anarchist, maybe. Go ahead, Silver. What were you gonna say?
Just you also have the inverse though, where you only remember like the
bad stuff,
or the bad stuff, or the bad stuff is what stands out in your memory as, like, not in relation to how much it was actually prevalent, but just in terms of how much it actually takes up in your memory.
Yeah, it's a balance. Obviously, I think we, not gamers, we here attract a certain like, I'm not going to have some people come on the podcast for long periods of time because I know, you know, just by talking to them, I'm like, all right, this person skews really positive or skews really negative, or, you know, it's not going to be able to adjust to the fact that though they may be bitching about something the next day, they may not be required, but a new game may come out in a series that's 8 long and they may need to jump into it or desire to jump into it. I have had friends who flatly won't. You know, be like, I'm not going to play it. And you're like, all right, that's interesting. But, you know, Sega Genesis was the last time that game came out. So if you want to go back to Virtual Cop, fine. But it's at some point you do need to sort of step forward. Like Top Spin, you fuckers. Step forward. Improve your graphics. WoW made the lore so convoluted and even retconned some stuff. That's the cool thing about somebody like me, where the last time I played WoW, you know, the Desert Spire location with the bulls existed. I don't even know if that's still a place. Like, WoW had no group finders or anything. I had to go talk to people, and
you actually had to live in the world, be in the world.
Yeah, but dude, here's the last time I played true WoW without like just testing something. The birds or whatever flew just to the other cities. That was it.
Yeah.
You got on the mount, and that fucker went to the other city.
There was no fast travel.
There was no fast travel. There's no dancing around.
There was like a Hearthstone, which came back every 60 minutes. They later changed it to 30, and there's flying. Yeah.
I don't even remember. I don't even know what the Hearthstone is. I don't even know. Was that in the game when I played it?
Yeah,
I don't think it was.
Yes.
Oh, okay. It was day
It was
one,
from the
basically.
start.
Okay.
It basically took you back to like Stormwind or
You mean the stone in your hand?
Where you take it to the innkeeper.
Right. Yeah. Because I remember some fucking ostriches kept killing me and using that. But yeah, man, it like WoW was. Yeah, you had to do everything. Everything was required. You had to like take all those steps. Was that the first? I'm trying to think if that was the first MMO I played.
The first MMO, I think, was Silk Road Online for me.
That's the Chinese one, right?
And it had like, I think it was action combat. It wasn't top target.
Well, what about Maple Story? Do you remember Maple Story?
I did not play Maple Story. I played RuneScape a little bit.
Huge for a while.
That was
massive.
Maple Story was massive. And I was like, dude, it's a 2D. What the fuck? It's like a platformer. What? And everybody I knew, and it was already not hack, but like the gray area of games, buying
and
you could
Life.
pay people to buy coins and stuff. Well,
and there was like
Second
Guns
Life.
the Duel was amazing. It was like huge. Guns was the one where you could like run with a Z. You could run on walls. You had swords plus guns, and you went crazy. It was really fun. And we used to play a lot of Jedi Academy. In the LAN area. Just. It had amazing.
Bro,
still the best Sabre combat.
When switches weren't really purchased, used a parallel cable to connect your PC to somebody else's. So it was a Cat5 flipped, and you would put your instead of go. And if you plugged in the network would be like, "There's no PC." But if you plugged in the other person's LAN cable, you were connected, and it was like,
Dude, we had such a tough time, like setting up Heroes of Might and Magic multiplayer at home, like. Trying to do it together,
trying to get it all working together. Yeah, the first time, or when you're like, okay, so what's the IP address? 192.168.0.55, and they go 192. It didn't work.
Splitters
sure
for the cables.
65? Huh?
Splitters, and we had like splitters for cables and shit.
Back when there was no such thing as a commercial young kid able to afford Switch of any kind. It was all done by the cables themselves. Those were good times. Unless you tried to use those cables with everybody over
cars with
and your first new Switch.
Drove to somebody's house.
Oh, with your PC in the back?
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I remember that all the time. And power supplies. You know how they always warn you now, don't plug anything into a fucking power strip? Dude, I have definitely had minimum 4 power strips to get me to somewhere. Whereas power strips, so we could play PC in the living room. You don't even think about it until I had one burn up, and all it was a long cable, but it was something about the amount of power going through, and it lit on fire. And I remember looking back in my brain, going, "Fuck, we had minimum
what do they call it? Like
5."
Like cherry dangling or something? They have a term
when
for
you
it.
1 to 1 to 1 to 1. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
cherry dangling.
We had like 1 to 1 to 1. Then you have monitors plugged into one. Then you had the PC plugged in the other. And then you had like fucking the Switch plugged in. And it was all plugged into that 15th. So there's like 5, 10, 15, 20 plugins by the time we get to the end. Yeah, we never burned up the carpet. I'm surprised. Those were the days. I still use power strips.
Dude, I got super obsessive when I bought my new PC that last year about like power and clean power and voltages, and I got way too obsessive. I bought a whole UPS with like an automatic voltage regulator. I'm just like, dude,
I have a
and it's
power
not like
conditioner on mine.
Bad. Yeah, it's like, oh man,
normal wiring in the door is actually fine, or on the wall is fine. It's just like once you hear about the problems. But Silver, you were saying Ultima was your first MMO. So Ultima, like the ancient, very first Richard's first MMO.
Richard Garriott's MMO, Ultima Online, back in '98.
Man,
I played that. Like had some uneven experiences. Like when you entered like the capital city and the royal palace there, Lord British's castle.
Yep.
Like it would glare out this god awful MIDI rendition of Rule Britannia. That was just, it made my ears bleed, basically.
Good times. Good times.
Yeah, it was completely awful. I had one time, I think I've related this story on the podcast multiple times, but where I logged out in an inn, and when I logged back into the game, there had been some sort of server issue overnight. So I logged back in and was out in the wilderness somewhere, and I was just surrounded by like giant ogres, and they completely mauled me. And so back then, with Ultima Online, if you died, you dropped all your gear. all your gold, everything you had on you. And so I lost all my gold, all my equipment, all my gear, and I couldn't go get it because I was just out in the boondocks with high level monsters everywhere. So yeah, that was unpleasant. But unfortunately, a high level player took pity on me and gifted me a bunch of stuff.
Everybody in chat, I would also like to hear what your first MMOs are. Was it Ultima? Or it doesn't have to be MMO. Let's say first, so it could have been Ghost Recon, more than 2. Your first experience playing a game with more than 2 people. Because I think couch co-op was so old. Couch co-op would have been... There's probably Genesis games with couch co-op, now that I think about it.
I mean, there were NES games, yeah.
Okay, there you go. So, we're talking about... it had to be not on the same system. Contra had...
Successfully? Not on the same system.
Yeah,
probably,
not on the same. I'm trying to figure out, especially like Dreamcast or what have you. What'd you say?
Probably Heroes of Might and Magic 3. We landed, me and my dad, and my dad's friend and my friend.
What's the other one? Is it Lineage? No. What's the other one that's like
Age of Mythology?
No, it's exactly like Might and Magic, but it was like the one. It was like the contender. It never did as well. And I think there was at least 2. Why do I think they're Lineage? But that doesn't seem right. Does anybody in chat know the game I'm talking about?
Lineage was a multiplayer
Disciples.
MMO.
Disciples. Did you guys ever play Disciples? Disciples was like a ripoff of Might and Magic, but darker, like almost like the emo version, like the sort of the emo version of that. Yeah, the edgier version. Yeah. So people are saying, Doom.
I didn't.
Doom.
I didn't really play on. Like, I didn't play games online until, like, Xbox 360 days. Do you believe that? Like, Xbox original, I didn't even...
Xbox made it easier, right? Like, Xbox put it together without the need for... If you weren't a PC user and you weren't choosing those games, I think Xbox is probably the first for a lot of people.
Yeah, aside from, like, going to the LAN cafe and playing, like, Counter-Strike and shit, I never, like, actually...
Man, we did not have...
Did you actually do that? As a kid, you'd go, like, to
I did that
all the time. Just go play
what was the cost
Dota,
for a PC per hour? Do you remember? Was it 8?
Like a couple $, and we would like play like random games, and if you won, you'd get free hours. You know what I mean? Like if I won like a Counter-Strike match,
actually
like a 1v1 with the owner, because we were friends. Like he was a gamer.
Oh, you mean it wasn't built into like some kind of? It wasn't like a contest, or was it a contest? Are you saying like they had
like more like a pickup game? Like it's like, hey guys, we're doing this right now, and the team who wins gets free hours. It was like that's smart. Like everyone knew each other. Like we'd go and play different games. Yeah, that's where, dude. Okay, so this is how I got introduced to Halo. One day they had like Xbox Originals set up, and I didn't have a console. Yeah, or I didn't have an Xbox. I just had like a GameCube or something. And they had like Xboxes set up, and one of the games was Halo. And I go in, and the first thing I see is an assault rifle with the number on there, and I was shooting, and the number would go down. I'm like, what? Yeah. And that like blew me away. So that's when I was like super obsessed with Halo. Yeah,
I think we probably could all track down to one game that did one little thing that caused us to think games were the shit. Because to me, it was the first time I heard a voice. To you, it was that first time seeing the number replicated. Not on the HUD, but in the game. Yeah, HUDs in always the actual game felt world. Like they were on your screen and there's a cheat going on. So when you saw that Halo and it went down, it reminded you of watching Aliens, where they showed the counter on the guns, and you're like, oh, fuck, this is real. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah. That's cool. I forgot all about that. Or even the Needler shows it, because you see the needles go away. And it feels like you're like, I'm seeing something be affected in the real world. That's cool. I had not thought about that.
We would back in the day, we would go to like the PC cafes and do all-nighters for like it would have been like between like maybe $15 for like 8 hours. You would go there at midnight, and then you would stop at like 8 a.m. On the weekend.
Oh shit!
Like three or four of us would go in. We would play a lot of Unreal Tournament co-op as well, like just against bots. Run the assault game mode, which was like running particular objectives, or just team deathmatch.
Oh my god, there was this one guy who was my designated. Like, if you're there and I'm there, we're playing Serious Sam. because Serious Sam was like co-op, and we played 1 and 2 and stuff.
And also
he
Red
was
Alert stuff.
He was like my
course.
serious. Yeah, Red Alert. Generals was huge. Warcraft.
Yeah, this was like 10 years before Generals. So yeah.
Yeah, even before Generals, yeah, it was Red Alert, and then when Generals came out, it was Generals. Yeah.
I know that Serious Sam, for one of my friends, if he was here, it would be his answer for what I said, the first game that made him go, oh my God. Because I remember when a bunch of enemies came and the music was hammering and they're and it's like boom, and I remember his name's Noah going, he was like dancing. He was like, this is the greatest moment. It's like, it's almost like a commercial where the windshield wipers go with the beat.
It felt like
everything
a roller coaster.
Everything was going perfect. And I remember hearing him, he's into games, but hearing him go, oh my God, this is awesome. And it was just because Serious Sam offered something, it wasn't contained a little, you know, it was like a
right.
wide
It was complete
open,
madness.
and the Egyptian stuff looked cool, and it was tons of enemies all at the same time. And
like,
he was like,
funny ass, crazy enemies, but also scary because they'd like go around the corner and run at you with their headless fucking,
or the scorpion guys with guns. What about you, Johnny? What was the first?
Dude,
what was the first online?
Warcraft 3 online, like the
RTS one.
Footman Frenzy. Footman Frenzy.
Yeah. Dude, so much Footman Frenzy.
What's
and
Footman
a lot
Frenzy?
of those.
So one of the custom games.
One of the custom maps in Warcraft 3. So, you know, people created all sorts of custom maps that you would play, which, you know, Dota is one of them, right? It came from that time. And then, there was Footman Frenzy. There was like a Dragon Ball, like so many.
Tower Defense.
Tower Defense.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, so many Tower Defense. You had like Jam TD.
Did you play
TD
at your house, Johnny, or was this the internet?
No, this was in university. So I was already a bit older. I was like, you know, 18, starting university. And with my friends, it was kind of my first experience playing online games. I did play some like couch co-op before then, but nothing that significant that I would remember. This was, you know, the big.
Right. Isn't it cool too? Because you go to so we had a trailer that had computers in it. There was a trailer like on the back of somebody's truck, and then he would literally go. Somehow he would rent time at different places. So we didn't ever have a cafe that was a building. We had this trailer guy who would go to different towns. But dude, university must be the greatest breeder of gamers ever. Because I remember always talking to friends who had left high school, they weren't really into games, and they would come back after 2 or 3 years, and I'd be talking to them, and they're like, dude, this friend introduced me to blah, blah, blah on his PC in the middle of the night. We were studying, and the games are a thing, and, you know, talking about a Daggerfall or something, and they couldn't shut up about it. Like, it was all university, and they would get together and and it didn't really matter how cool you were. It was like somebody had a PC on your floor and everybody would be there. And I do know a lot of friends who made some serious cash because their parents gave them a PC for school.
That's
and
funny.
they would be like $10 and you can come over and play for 2 hours.
You know, I've seen that a lot because like in high school, everyone was trying to conform to their own group and stuff. And so like the non-gamers were just not gamers or parents.
Right.
And then they would and then university, everything would collide and then people would just get introduced to a lot of stuff.
Right?
Yeah, there you go,
right. It's like you can, when you have your own bed, and you can stay up and you don't have to worry about somebody walking in other than maybe somebody who lives with you and the door. Things get weird, man. It's it's you know, that's the way it is. Like it is just funny that so many of my friends just didn't game and then went to university.
I remember the first time I saw Nova Logic's Delta Force was at the LAN Cafe.
Oh my God, yeah.
And that was one of those games that really made me stop immediately when I saw it, when I saw somebody snipe someone like a kilometer away. And I went, wait, what is this? This is something I haven't seen before. This looks really cool. And then I started playing it.
Do you think it was because you could reach out?
And got into
Sorry, I just want to ask, do you think it was because the AI would be on at such a distance where we were so accustomed to games with AI?
Not just that it was on, but just that the environment was so vast and so open, which was this was the time of like Duke Nukem 3D and corridor shooters, and where we were really constrained with level design. And then you had like Delta Force all of a sudden that came in with these huge open areas.
Typhoon Rising was the other one
that were like several square kilometers wide, right? And you could just go walk around them basically freely and with different heights of terrain and stuff like that you could use. it really sort of changed that game. And then after Delta Force came, of course, Operation Flashpoint, which really was really a genuine revolution at the time.
Yeah,
Operation Flashpoint is still one of the biggest game changers for me ever. When it loaded in and you see like the burned out Jeep on the fucking the menu screen, and you go in, and it janked as shit, right? Janky. But the fact that it was that big, and you could you could see the guys way away in the trees. No grass, by the way. It was just a green texture on the ground. But dude, real quick, let me read this real quick. And Snuggles says, $20 super chat. Thanks for the great content. Thank you, Snuggles, for always being around. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Absolutely,
by the way,
brother.
Go ahead. What were you gonna say, Abzi?
That for me, that was I went to the internet cafe one of those days, and I saw a game called Battlefield 1942. And I went in there, dude, and I was just blown the fuck away. I can get into this plane, I can take off, go to the enemy base, go down on them. Like it was insane. Like riding all these vehicles, and it was huge.
Maybe because I felt the same way towards Battlefield, that one, but the Vietnam one, which wasn't even a good one. I think it was Battlefield Vietnam. But I remember remember the first, I always talk about getting out of a car for the first time because the engine can now do both. I feel like in those multiplayer games, the first time I could get into a car and move the car, it wasn't a static car. It was the fact that I could move it, or a plane and I could get into it. Because I remember Battlefield leaping onto like a wing and jumping in and going, what the shit? Like, it's an all new game. Like, my brain was saying, now I have a plane game, a car game, and a shooter all at once, even though it was all the same. Yeah. Even though it was all the same game. Yeah, those are good times, man.
Remember Black Hawk Down? What happened to that? Yeah, there was Black Hawk Down.
Typhoon Rising was the one I liked, and it was who was Typhoon Rising? Do you remember, Silver? It wasn't Delta Force. It was let me look it up.
Wasn't that also Nova Logic? Or
I think it was Typhoon.
And then there was Command and Conquer Renegade.
Joint Operations. Yeah, Command and Conquer Renegade, where you could switch it out.
Renegade was a very underrated game, I think.
It was underrated. It tried to do some stuff, not always successfully, but they tried to do some stuff and sort of change it up. It was actually quite fun in multiplayer. I thought it was an enjoyable game. I was going to say the other one by Bungie, which is the Myth, the RTS Myth. Those games were really good. They were 3D, and I remember I liked RTS, but they were all 2D. And so the fact that I could see a 3D representation of a character on the screen was just like mind-blowing at the time. The first time you get any depth in a game, if you're accustomed to all the 2D shit, I remember playing old Abrams battle tank on the Sega Genesis, and it was geometry. Like, so a tree would be just a thing and like a triangle of green, and you were like, oh, wow, this is awesome. And then the first time you saw a flight sim, remember the old flight sims? You'd be like, here's a city, and it was a pixelated mess.
Yeah.
Just shit.
It was magical. It was
the shit. And it was, by the way, if you guys think you have frame rate issues now, that shit was straight up 5 FPS, and you were happy to be at above 1. You were playing, I remember I had it was a joystick, but it almost looked like it's hard to describe. It looked like a couple straws together and had a single button on top and a button on the bottom like an Atari, and maybe one or two, and that was your joystick. They didn't have a flight stick back then. It was like this little baby joystick. It'd be like, and the sound of the plane would just be, it was some guy who did that for the Foley in the back.
My uncle was just obsessed with those, so he had like every flight sim game, and I used to just go to his house.
And isn't it weird how they've progressed now to where it's Google Earth that you're flying around? Like technology.
I think that was one of the first things I said when Google Earth first came out. I was like, what if they could just like make a game and use Google Earth? And
they got boats in Flight Sim now. Like, it's called Flight Sim, and they got boats. And they put the Dune Arrakis, the little fucking...
Yeah, that's crazy. And the Halo shit.
Dude, this is the name. But it's nuts. They put that in, and they adjusted the world. So it's Dune when you load in. It's a desert world and stuff. Or maybe they transport you to the desert. I don't know. But, yeah, it's crazy, man. That's car really games, cool. Like Horizon, the first time being able to race around, or even Test Drive Unlimited did that. Go ahead, Sabre.
Yeah, I mean, Test Drive 3 Unlimited, I remember as being the first open world game I ever played. Like back in the early 90s, I think I got like a floppy disk version of it. Where, wait a minute, I can just drive off the road. I can just go cross country. I can go. There are railway tracks here, and I can just drive down along them. Oh no, there's the train coming at me. Like that kind of blew my mind at the time. That was one of those benchmark games for me. And one of the reasons I remember Chrono Trigger so fondly is that was another benchmark game for me, where that's a game. It's the first game I remember that really sort of made me think about the impact my decisions actually had on the playthrough, where you get put on trial early on in that game, and it calls back during the trial. You get callbacks to stuff you do in the very opening minutes of the game and decisions you make there, where that made me go, wow, this game is actually holding me accountable for stuff I did.
It's tracking stuff.
For stuff, exactly. It tracks stuff that I did like two or 3 hours ago that are coming back and getting callbacks now and are now affecting the decision that the jury is going to have to make in this trial. That's insanely cool. And that was something that Chrono Trigger did, and exceptionally well. And that's why a big reason why that game still has such a huge place in my mind and my heart.
Luke says, I remember having my mind blown when Doom had verticality. Yeah, the first time I remember shooting somebody and seeing the bullet go up, you didn't have to aim up or down. Do you guys remember those days, man?
You couldn't aim up and down,
You couldn't
right?
aim up or down, but the bullet would go up and your brain would be like, that makes sense. It's just, oh, man, so good. Yeah.
Remember when games like Wolfenstein on the PC would be different than Wolfenstein on the N64?
Yeah.
Like Wolfenstein 64 was just different, or like Doom 64 was different.
They would have different versions at times, like different versions sometimes. There was a couple that had different names even, where you jump in, you'd start playing, you'd be like, oh, wow, this is not the same game. I think Splinter Cell was one of the last ones that I ever saw, where one of the Splinter Cells, was it 3 that was completely different on the Xbox original and Xbox 360 or something, or had different co-op or something? One of the Splinter Cells...
that was Double Agent, I'm pretty sure.
Was it Double Agent that had, like, completely different stuff? For whatever reason, must have been a memory issue or something, but they, like... And remember when it used to be completely different port houses? And you would get that port, and you'd just be like, oh my god, it's not the same game. It doesn't play... It's just using the name, you know? It'd just be ripping off the name of something. Man.
I remember we had Perfect Dark on the N64, but we never, for some reason, we didn't have the expansion pack. And we just thought it was the game, where it was just multiplayer. It was like, oh, this is the game. And then someone like came over and got the expansion pack. It's like, no,
multi-pack, right? The little RAM
it's like a
cartridge.
thing you put it on the N64, to actually like unlock the full game. Yeah,
dude, that's why RAM's important. It's been a thing since back in the fucking Sega Genesis days, where RAM being added to a game changes everything. That's crazy.
There was a gun in that game that we would just forbid anyone from using, and it's the gun that could just see through walls. Someone would be like camping in a room and just looking through the walls. And
because back then, I think they just thought it was a good idea, and now it's a cheat that you buy. You know, it's like, dude, it's the worst idea ever. Go ahead. So, what were you gonna say, Silver? Sorry.
Just like back in the day, LucasArts used to make an action version and then like an adventure game version of the Indiana Jones game. So they made an action version of The Last Crusade and 2D adventure game version. They made an action version of Fate of Atlantis and then a 2D adventure game version.
And woe to the parents who bought the wrong one. I just want
because I think I told this story as well. I told my mother I wanted Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis.
Yeah.
And she got me the action version, and the action version was completely terrible, whereas the adventure game version is an all-time classic. And so she got me the action version. That one of the greatest single disappointments of my gaming life was getting.
I think as we've gotten older, I know I'm hard to shop for, but you have to understand that like parents they just don't understand, as Will Smith said, but they really don't. And even people I know like if you know games, they're not going to know what you want. They're just going to see the name on it, and to them it would make no sense. It would be like 3 versions of Dune being released at the same time. I mean, not over periods of time. So to them,
that's
it
why
makes sense.
I'm grateful my dad was a gamer. He just knew what to get.
Yeah, because it's. I definitely remember there's like that time where you realize that your entire vocabulary doesn't match your parents, not because of age or anything. It's because they're just not. There's no. I mean, there's no connection at all. It's a completely different world. It's not like, oh, horses versus motorbikes. It's like, dude, it's an entire universe that exists smaller than the eye can see. And I'm talking about risk processors. And my dad's like, dude, is it a boat? I have no fucking clue what this kid's talking about. Yeah, it sucks, but it is cool you had one, because I don't think anybody in my family that was older played games. They just... Did your dad play games? I don't remember. No.
No, never.
Did your mom?
No, nothing.
Yeah, see, man.
My mom
I'm
actually
with you.
did a little bit, and so did my aunt. So we did actually also sometimes play games together.
Point and click kind of stuff, or were they like dooming it out, kicking your ass?
No, like NES games. Like they one game they really adored was like a Bubble, the two dragons blowing bubbles.
Yep.
Yeah.
My mom played House of the Dead with me on the PC.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, for a
that
second,
was like
I thought,
our
okay,
game.
Sorry, I know what you're talking about. I thought you meant the Dana Plato one. I thought you meant the full
shooter.
motion video one. Yeah, the
like the one where the on rails shooter. Yeah.
Those are good times, man. What else do we got? What else do we got for gaming? Is there any other huge? Let me look here.
I'm just excited for Dragon's Dogma, man. Just counting down the days.
For sure.
Dude, it's crazy. I mean, and there's stuff even coming into this year. It's nuts. Did you guys see that Eurogamer said Kingdom Come Deliverance is one of the most ambitious ports they've ever seen? They say ambitious. They don't say it runs well. You can be ambitious and terribly miss the target.
Ambitious.
Here's what they say. This is from... I'll read it in a second. This is from Thomas Morgan. He says, Kingdom Come Deliverance is one of the most ambitious Switch ports we've seen. The compromises are obvious, but the end result is still very impressive. So that's cool. I mean, it's running on the Switch, guys. It didn't even run well on my console.
Barely ran on PC, dude.
Here's the thing.
Oh, yeah.
That's the big switch. The reason why these companies are making huge switches now, man, not only is the environment changing, but this will be the first time. Okay, this will be the first time in 2 gens where a company will be able to release on 2 competitors now. It's going to be crazy. It's not just Xbox or PlayStation. It'll be Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch 2. It is going to be nuts. Yeah. Dude, it is, because people were wondering about like Microsoft doing stuff, and it's like, well, they have another person to sell to now. So it's like if they want to do their version Game Pass, but then now they have a Switch and a PlayStation version, if they, if you want to be there, like all these companies are doing that. Every person I talk to, even though they're all under the same stresses for the layoffs, they're all really excited about having the idea of even a somewhat close competitor. Like it's not going to be, it's not going to be as powerful, but the Switch is fucking ancient, man. Like it's so great to finally get. I mean, it's goddamn that thing is creaky. So to finally get something that's equal is just going to be awesome. Will the Switch 2 be as powerful as the Steam Deck? More powerful than the Steam Deck.
Yeah, I think more easily.
Steam Deck is. Steam Deck.
A lot of cope though with the Steam Deck.
Yeah, the Steam Deck seems to be very copium induced. Like I don't know if that's a Steam thing or
I don't know.
Because even if I mention that the Steam Deck doesn't perform 7 times more admirably than any human would ever expect, and quite literally saves babies, you get a lot of people getting very edgy about the Steam Deck. And I don't know if that's a Valve thing or I don't know what that is, but it's definitely also a very PlayStation style defense that sort of pops up
very
right away.
Defensive.
It's weird because it's like, well, for the cost, you are getting it for the cost. You're actually getting something that's good for that cost.
I love my Steam Deck, especially like the OLED version is great.
Yeah.
And but I think it's very easy to get anecdotal too, because like for me, I've played the Yakuza games on it, and I had a great experience. So if you asked me how do games run on it, I would say they run great, right? But I haven't tried. I don't know.
But people complaining Red Dead doesn't run at like 120 or 60 or some shit. Like it's just not.
Okay, well, then you also have the opposite where people are like, no, it runs every single game perfectly. And you'd be like, listen, I have it. You're full of shit. Like it doesn't even make sense from a scientific level what you're talking about. And it definitely seems like purchasing in causes defense, where to me, I would say purchasing in should just cause whatever reaction you get. If it's good in some places, like I don't think Johnny would say that. I know he just said he would say it, but I think Johnny would actually think and go, no, actually what I mean is Yakuza plays great. He would self-correct on his own if he didn't self-correct before he even answered that question. What I think is there's this oddity that goes around with, especially that handheld, which I don't see with other handhelds, which is even weirder. It's like maybe it's because they feel they feel it outperforms the cost, which I don't know if
I think because of the price point, there's a huge community behind it, and they all have.
Yeah, because we don't see the same with like, I want to say the Ally or like some of the higher priced ones.
The Ally. Yeah, no, you don't.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah,
and I think it's a cost thing. I think more people were just more people were just able to buy this, and it's Valve, right?
There's something with Valve, man. Something with Valve is very... Did you guys see the 100%. Huge leak about Valve and Sweeney from Epic calling Valve assholes in an email?
Yeah.
Dude, Tim Sweeney...
What was that?
Those
I
are
don't
so
know if I ever
fun.
agree with him, but he cracks me up. So basically what happened was there's a lawsuit between them, so more leaked documents. And in one of the leaked documents, Epic says, hey, listen, we're going to do the Epic Store. We're going to have a smaller amount, which it's widely known no one likes the amount Steam takes for their games. But as the emails continued, in the later email, Tim Sweeney's just like, and you assholes are telling everybody that only the big guy can win, blah, 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 because he's mad because he feels that amount is too much. And he did break down some good math. I mean, it was napkin math, but it was math
what
that
did he
checks
say is
out.
like, you Steam guys are getting more revenue than the devs themselves or something.
He said out of the top 10 or maybe top 20 games that are on Steam, most likely you guys are making more than any of those devs. And I believe then it was also stated internally, also leaked by one of their employees, that they are one of the highest per employee amount that they make. But I find that that's when we're getting into some kind of weird, like political statement where if you do well, we're going to pull you down. And I do not believe in that. Like,
same.
That to me is creepy because then somebody's going to arbitrarily choose, if you do this well, you're screwed. And that's sort of the social zeitgeist. But it was hilarious because Tim just loses his shit.
Tim is still Tim, dude.
He responded to me on Twitter one time when I said something on a podcast. Yeah. So I'm like, that dude's watching the podcast. What the fuck? But
hi, Tim.
Reg and I used to always tease Tim because he sort of is the normal guy running a company versus the public. And people tease Elon Musk. But the stuff Tim said, he's just like, and you assholes. And just, I don't know why, but the idea of a CEO blindly emailing the other group and just being like, you guys are assholes, it cracks me up. That dude, he legitimately has made some good changes, but he is also batshit insane, I think. He's the Steve Jobs, right? Like, he's a little Steve Jobbian. Nothing against Steve Jobs, but Steve Jobs was dick. I think Tim is nowhere near as much of a dick as Steve Jobs, it appears like. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. Let's see. Remember when Soul Calibur games had different bonus characters for different consoles?
Yeah. Darth Vader versus Yoda.
Oh, dude.
God of
War not even a versus.
Master Chief?
It's not even a versus. Sorry.
Dude, Yoda was really fun, dude. Yoda was really fun, dude.
But not as fun as Vader. Like,
for me, it was. I loved Yoda, dude. I loved playing Yoda, dude. He would flip around and shit, man. Sh movement.
The idea of just there's no cool factor in Yoda. I guess it is true. He may have moved like a squirrel.
I get it.
But it just
it's Darth Vader. It's Darth Vader.
You know, I think I hate that. Exclusives are one thing, which I understand business wise, but man, the character stuff. By the way, Ubisoft has done this, and Hogwarts did it with their mission that was only PlayStation.
Yeah,
that's when,
which was a really good mission. I was surprised it was a really good mission.
I believe it's considered the best mission in the game.
One of the best side mission. Yes. Absolutely.
That's got a smart if you track that. I don't track that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like it, but I didn't sit there and grade each quest in Hogwarts.
Yeah, remember COD did that a bunch of times? Like, COD had exclusive levels in PlayStation. Yeah,
I mean, I guess, what do you guys think? Probably better to have an exclusive level or character than not get the game.
Right? I guess so.
Yeah.
But it's still something about it sucks even more when you do get the game, and then it's got less...
That's a weird choice though. Like, hey, would I rather get a game or like a, that's a weird choice to make.
Yeah,
I don't know how to use any of the pre-order stuff that gets, because I never Even when I like
it's in a
pre-order
game.
and I get like extra gear or whatever, I never
Yeah,
use that. I
I delete
always
those.
just use
Try to.
the basic startup.
That's why. That's
Agreed.
why I'm not pre-ordering Dragon's Dogma.
Or
I'm waiting
Yakuza.
because
Remember that disaster?
that's why, because Yakuza fucked me with its like deluxe
It did.
shit. So
Yep.
so I'm just with especially with a game like Dragon's Dogma, I am trying not to, get myself down
Yeah,
that hole.
because
Hopefully,
Silver, I don't either. If the developer gives me one, most of the time the code is like the deluxe version. So you put it in and you get the stuff anyway. But recently I did get a game that had like 3 codes in addition to the code, and it was like bonus, and I was like, because unless it's like it's a new saddle, but then I'm even like, why are you pre-selling that anyway? Usually they are pre-selling you like something.
even if it's cosmetic, dude, I want to look like shit when I start.
Yeah,
Okay,
so do
I.
Oh, dude, because it ruins the cycle. If you come out of the womb just all jacked and shit, you're not going to work out anymore. You know what I mean? So, like, when you come out of an Assassin's Creed and you already look so fucking amazing, why would you... That entire cycle of collection is gone.
That's also a problem, because if you start with a sword that looks pretty good, then the next thing you pick up will look terrible in comparison.
So do you guys think Transmorg is the best thing, then? Are you guys happy for transmorgification or whatever it's called?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I don't like transmogs.
I don't know.
Transmog.
I think I'm in the middle. So we have 2 who like it. I'm in the middle. You
I don't
like
like being able to change the look of I like the gear to represent the stats with it. Like I like to whatever I have.
Oh, I see.
Whatever I'm wearing to represent my stats. Yeah. I don't like transmogs. I know most people do, and it's nice to have the option, but I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the option is nice. It really depends on the game.
Sure,
Damn, man, this is making me think of... I don't know, then. I don't know, because I am a big believer that if I have a fire sword and it looks like ice, I'm going to hate it. Like, that would be dumb. But I don't like to use transmorg, because then I feel that if I can just make everything look like everything
funky.
else, I sort of lose the... Yeah, I think I do sort of
I'm leveling up and like I'm getting like these gloves that look completely different than these like legs, and it's like, this is what I'm wearing, dude, you know?
You ever shown up with that? You got
I don't
like
to
the
look proper
piece,
while I'm
the
leveling.
capris, and fucking
I
some
just
gloves,
like to look like a blind person who raided a closet, basically.
Yeah, rolled around with some super glue and whatever clothes stuck to you. Go ahead, Johnny. What are you going to say?
But again, like Johnny said, it does depend on the game, because something like Cyberpunk just does not make sense when they add stats like tied to your clothes. So something like that, I get it, but like something in a fantasy game, I wouldn't. So
right.
Yeah, it depends on the game. Like, Monster Hunter World, you ended up having one like loadout, which is your min-max optimized gear with all your gems and everything in place. You don't want to switch that up. But you're playing 300 hours, you also don't want to look the same exact way every hunt. You want to be able to look a different way. So that's where I think transmog is valuable. But I agree with you, like in a normal leveling experience in an RPG, I also want the fantasy of like, oh, I picked up these trousers.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, Monster Hunter, I did use outfits as well. Yeah, that's true.
Elden Ring is a game where I don't feel a need for like transmog, where there is a certain appeal in mixing, because they have set stats there. You don't really upgrade your armor in Elden Ring. So that's a huge part of it, I think. But when you have armor if you have an armor set that you really enjoy, I really appreciate being able to apply that look later down the line and retain that look, even though I might have to change out the equipment to sort of progress. Although I will say I did actually beat like Witcher 3 just staying with the starting armor you get in White Orchard.
Why? Because it showed in the cover. That's what.
Yes,
dude, that armor looked better than like. Oh my god, 90%. There was so much bad looking armor.
Can I also point out that
made you look like you have a belly, like a beer belly?
I will not do suits at all, almost ever. If they say 1 of 3, I'm like, fuck you, 0 of 3. I do not like suit bonuses sets? That grow. I hate them. Yeah, I don't know why. I have no clue why. But if it says you have 1 of 3 and it adds +1. if you do the pants.
Is it because it looks too standard? Because it fits so well together?
It just it feels weirdly like a rule, and I'm so chaotic that I'm like, fuck
like you're fitting
rules.
into a mold.
Yeah, I get mad about it. So I'll see, like, a lot of games smartly use it. It's a very smart mechanic. I have no issue with the mechanic. I'm just saying internally, personally, when I see 1 of 3, I'm like, fuck you of 0. Like, it's never happening now. Like, I don't want to be forced into your shit. I want to be I want to be able to add fire to anything. And this will be the fire pants or whatever. And so what I'll usually do is work around it. I'll go and find stuff that lets me, let's say, add something to the equipment I want instead of going 0, 1, 2, 3. And some games get crazy. I just want to point out, some games are crazy. I've seen one that's like 1 of 7, and I'm like, fuck you, man. I'm not getting into your grind.
Holy moly. Yeah.
Dude, for some reason, I have that feeling where I hate, like, other than, like, not about gear sets specifically, but something like Helldivers, for example. I don't like wearing the set they give you. I like mixing and matching and because it's like a unique look
versus
like trying to make it look good.
Yeah.
Trying to make it look, or like painting or something. Like I like that way more than just like wearing a full set for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels good to like a little mercenary looking, And by the way, we see this in the military. This is absolutely real true. You get set up and you get your stuff when you're deployed. But everybody, once they're actually out and about and not waking up every morning being checked, but they're on patrol and stuff, those guys are adjusting things slightly. They do have people who have a very specific thing in which they want their setup. They want the furniture on their gun to do a certain thing, and it might be different than somebody else's. So it's not necessarily unknown that even the most militant of militaries, when those guys get out in the field, something just works better. And they've got it set up a little differently. I'm not saying they're wearing Russian armor and they're United States military. That would be pretty crazy. But, the ability for you to sort of flex whatever personal desires you may have on your armor and stuff. Do you have anything else? I want to make sure I'm not holding
questions.
You guys.
There was something that popped up.
Yeah, go
by
for
the way,
it, Johnny.
real quick.
Go for it. Yeah.
Final Fantasy 16 announced. They said there will be a PC demo coming out within the year, and they're looking at not a long timeline for the PC version.
PC version of Final Fantasy 16?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I thought that was out already for some reason.
No, it's not. Hopefully Rebirth follows suit as well and doesn't take too long. Yeah.
So
Final
that's
Fantasy
pretty cool.
16.
Man,
it was an exclusive.
So that came out for
so
context.
That was just console.
Last year, June, I want to say. July last year.
Summer.
All right, sorry. Yeah, for some reason in my brain, I was thinking that was already out, but I guess I was thinking of something else. I don't know.
Yeah, we're still
Maybe I was thinking of remake.
coming up on the year, so I guess it's in line with the 1 to 2 year cycle
delay that they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Going through the questions here real quick for our Discord. These are people who have been nice enough to join the Discord or YouTube members who have done so. First of all, thanks everybody for doing the chats. They're awesome when we jump in. Got to meet a bunch of you guys. It's been a very cool time. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to ask these questions. Sometimes we miss them, and I want to apologize. Or sometimes a person named Kasabs writes a question that is 9 scrolls long.
An essay.
And I'm not going to be able to hit that one. So I'm going to hit the basics. He says, please choose. Give me 1 second. What's your go-to game? That's the first part of his question. What's your go-to game currently? Is there a game that is your current go-to game? Anybody want to answer that?
My go-to game?
Right now. Just your go-to. You got a little extra time. What's your go-to game right now?
Rebirth until I'm done with it. And then Dragon's Dogma, yeah. And Helldivers is there. Whenever
I was going to say, I thought it was Helldivers for some reason, but I think that's just
Helldivers is now. I usually have like a multiplayer game, a roguelike, and a single player game. And right now that's Final Fantasy Rebirth. Roguelike because anywhere, like even when I'm at work.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
So that's Balatro and Helldivers for multiplayer, yeah.
All right, Silver Johnny, what's your go-to game?
I think it tends to be racing games these days, or at the moment. So either WRC or F123.
F123.
Interesting.
Have I talked to you about that one? Is that one good?
Yeah, I talked about it
also
last year.
PSA.
Oh.
Stay off Twitch. Stay off Twitch, Dragon's Dogma, because people are leaking it already. The console gamers and stuff. So
gotcha.
Be mindful.
We did talk about I don't remember any. Was it is good?
I would say so. Yeah. I would say it was basically a return to form kind of for Codemasters. It does have a couple of issues, like they haven't really expanded very much in career mode. It's not evolved terribly from where it was, but it does still feel really rewarding to go through a career mode in that game and progress, like start from a lower bottom team and develop your car to the point where you can basically compete with Red Bull Racing and the other top tier teams. Like going with Williams and taking them back to the glory days feels really good.
Okay, well, I'll check that one out. What about you, Johnny?
League is kind of my go-to in the long stretch, but these days Rebirth pretty much. Yeah.
All right, and then he says heavy question, but I think we actually answered this just in our discussion, which is what adds value or detracts value to games. And when we covered what games or what things help you get better Steam reviews, we actually covered new value, which I think is like key. The ability to remap and stuff. Things that don't cost the same as like putting new graphics or paying for an actor, but is actually probably going to do you better. Because I'll tell you this, if Alone in the Dark has all of the crazy shit but didn't have David Arbor, it'll review better than it has David Arbor, and it doesn't have a bunch of crazy shit. Like, that's just the way gamers are right now. There's a lot of requirements that people need to jump through. He says, my detractors early access. Oh, no, he's okay. Value-added mechanics, push forward. Wow, this is huge. There's a lot of question marks in here. What makes a game classic? Okay. Sorry. Kasabs, this is there. I mean, I think there's like at least 11 questions in there. And there are a lot we've talked about today. So I'm going to try to get to just, oh man, he's answering but putting questions at the end of stuff. I'm trying to even parse one question here.
Paragraphs would also help, brother.
So
where is this?
Here's another. This is in Discord in the Friday podcast. It is a mountain. So he talks about a bunch of stuff, then jumps over and says, "What makes a game classic? What aspect is okay? What's something? Okay, how about this? If you have a classic game in your guys' library, your own classic game, not a classic because nobody knows what that means. Everything's called Game of the Year anymore. What's a game that's in your brain is a classic to you, and why is that game a classic to you? Do you see what I'm saying? So."
Binding of Isaac.
Binding of Isaac. Why is that?
Because it's like the heart and soul of what makes like what sets in stone, like it's the heart and soul of like what makes a roguelike and what makes it really good. Like it is basically, I would point to that game as the reason of my interest in the roguelike genre, basically.
Okay. And Johnny, what's your what's a classic in your brain, and why is that game classic in your brain?
The one that comes to mind is Final Fantasy X, because I still think that was
interesting.
Sort of the best formula of like leveling being addictive and the sphere grid being the right amount of complexity but interesting, being able to shuffle stuff around. And having a really cool, like, end game that actually, kept you interested in getting stronger the whole time, and lots of mini games. I still think to this day, the key to a great JRPG to me is having some great mini games. Blitzball, and that one, I would say is a classic.
Damn. Okay, that was not the answer I expected. What about you, Silver? What's a classic in your brain, and why?
Stardew Valley, I would say. Like that's a game that really, like at the time back in 2016, it kind of came out of nowhere, and it really refined a lot of stuff that had gone before, and then sort of put it all together in a way that really meshed well. Like from the dungeon exploring of going into the mines in that game, the fishing aspect, the farming aspect, and then the social aspect of developing relationships with the people living in the village, and then the communal aspect of the community center and how that tied into the store versus the new corporate competitor outside of town. And And there was just a lot of stuff in that game that really hooked me in and has kept me sort of playing it consistently over the past 8 years now. And keep me coming back to it.
Ageless as well, right? Like
it is, and it's just such a lovely feel-good game. Whenever I like, it's just nice to put on as a comfort game, and it remains a classic to me.
All right, and mine is weirdly enough. I mean, there's a lot, but mine is definitely the one that popped in my head was Life is Strange, and that's because I'm not a 17-year-old girl, and I never thought I wanted to be one. But that story not only resonated with me after, but during. And I cared about the characters way more than I have a lot of point and clicks. I like point and click games, but I didn't see anything in that game that was going to magically make me like it. And it stuck with me to the point to where I use it for examples in other games. I use it for discussion. And I usually consider a classic not just in my brain in some hidden repository of data, but if I use it as examples or cross examples where I'm like, you know, what would I like to see in a shooter? Oh, well, Life is Strange. To me, if I'm mentioning it in those kind of conversation, it must be pretty high up in my list. So I just love the story. And I like paranormal shit. But that one stuck with me for... When was Life is Strange? Fuck. 6 or 7 years. No, it's longer than that, I think. DC. How long are some of these games? What?
Before Vampire. It was even before Vampire. Which was, Vampire was 2017, 2018.
Yeah, it's crazy how long some of these games have existed. Cloud Cutter says, would you review a game like The Sims? How would you play it? How much of the game would you play? Would you review the next Sim games that comes out? So, how would I review a game like The Sims? How long would you play it? With a game like The Sims, I would most likely try to complete a bunch of the personal quests in a Sims game and max out a bunch of their skills. I would try to complete at least one house. I would try to have at least one baby. I would try to complete multiple relationships. It's pretty easy to review a Sims game, to be honest, because it tracks everything. And so it's very easy to say, this can, you know, this works, this works, this works. And then I would adjust it and do exactly the opposite. And probably play one character where I tried to be as antisocial as possible. Yeah, that would be it. Yeah,
that's a good question. How would you like review... Yeah, like a game built on simulation and systems, and not
you just test the simulations. And the cool thing about Sims is they track them all. So it's like painting is tracked. So you can sim learning painting and see when it's maxed. And then if you keep doing it, do you gain more money? Oh, something's weird because it says I'm only at level 5, but I'm getting more and more money. Is that the way it's supposed to be? Is that not the way it's supposed to be? It's pretty easy for the Sims. It's when they're nebulous that they're hard. When
that's what I meant. Like unknown systems. Like
when there's unknown systems, and you're all, how many of those am I, interacting with? Where it's actually, I actually think the Sims are probably a little bit easier than most. There are some games though that, man, when they have hidden systems or hidden stuff, like Dragon's Dogma, which I'm reviewing right now. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I have to track and check, and I have my as I told Johnny, I have like physical maps I'm drawing out because I'm like, oh, there's a gap right there. Does that mean
cool?
It's a real gap, or does that mean it's geometry, or does that mean there's a hidden?
That seems like a fun
armor?
Game to review, like a fun way.
Yeah, Dragon's Dogma is like one of the reasons why I like reviewing. Those games are some of my favorites. Not because the game's good, but because those are the games I like to review. There's
the game's bad then?
It's terrible. Shut up.
Oh
no. Next up, Johnny wanted to point out 14,000 games are not compatible on Steam Deck.
Yeah, I think only a smaller compatible.
Okay.
There is a smaller number of I think around 4,000 that play great according to them. Right? They have that tag of plays great.
Right.
But those are, according to the community, 14,000, which is it's a good number. It's grown a lot. Yeah, it's cool to see. For sure.
By the way, anybody who's wondering why we would mention that, it's because it's not a Windows device. It's a whatever, Proton.
Yeah, so that would be just like natively on your Steam Deck.
Yeah.
As you buy it.
And that's really good. That's that's a library bigger than even Reg's. And at that point, we're getting stupid sizes. Jesus Christ asked us about Dragon's Dogma. What's your favorite or most memorable dragon fight? We'll get to that. I mean, there's only a couple dragon fights in that game.
I think it meant in general, in any game.
In any game?
What's your
in any game?
memorable?
Okay. I don't even track dragon fights in games.
It would be from Dragon's Dogma for me on both counts, both the favorite and the most memorable. They would just be different. Like the favorite would be the one where I fought a fire drake like through the night in the woods, and up until it became morning when I finally killed it.
Are we just talking about any reptilian creature then, or a true dragon?
No, that was a fire drake, a true fire dragon breathing fire in Dragon's Dogma. I fought it in the woods through the night, and then
I'm probably becoming too anal on the terms then because I don't consider them dragons. I get you. Continue.
Oh, you're thinking a big
dragon.
I'm thinking a dragon versus a drake. Yeah, but I get you. Continue. You guys are right. I'm wrong. That was just too anal on the description.
But then there was there's a combat arena on Bitter Black Isle in the Dark Arisen content where you go there with bait, and then depending on the bait you bring, you spawn like a random encounter. And one of the random encounters you can spawn is 3 different dragons. So it's a fire drake, an ice drake, and I think a wind lightning dragon.
Cool. That's awesome.
They're all in this arena, and it's just the most chaotic fight I've ever had in a game that I can remember. It took me like an hour and a half to kill all 3. And then just like trying to run around feverishly reviving pawns who got melted constantly by the breaths from 3 dragons going everywhere. It was just complete anarchy, and that's certainly my most memorable.
I want to mention this before you guys do. I do think Elden Ring's dragon appearance
I was gonna say that.
I know. I had to cheat and go first because I went last time.
Placidux, the one that like teleports.
It's
Placidus. Yeah. I think
all I know is like that thing came down, and I was just like, it wasn't even the best fight, but to me, it's the most memorable. Of like, what the?
Right. And it was pretty epic.
Yeah, it's pretty epic. What were you saying? So, or Abzi? It's what?
I was like, for me, it was also like just being on the horse and like galloping and him like flying and breathing fire, and then
you're on your horse. And because it's not. Yeah. I mean, he's just there, which is a little different than like it's a lead up. The dragon's the bad guy. Blah blah blah. It's just like, dude, there. At least the way I faced him, he was just flying around.
Came out of nowhere.
And it was like that moment of like, what? And like Abzi said, man, being on the horse and the sense of mobility in Elden Ring is so nice for those style of games. Oh. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but there is something awesome about a teleporting dragon. So he's like teleporting and hitting you. That's pretty cool.
Oh my god!
What about
Placidus sucks?
Since I stole that one, do you guys think of Monster Hunter at all? Like, is that
I did.
Is that a good one?
I struggle to track which are like wyverns because they they don't have 4 legs and stuff like that. I also honestly. I found the fights in Monster Hunter World on the scale of like frustrating versus epic and enjoyable.
Yeah.
More on the frustrating side.
Fair.
So I remember them more because they were hard and frustrating rather than because
they were
I was enjoying myself. I enjoyed the process of conquering them and figuring out, how to, but they don't stick with me as like particularly.
That's very fair, man. That's a completely fair answer for that. That makes sense. I get it because I agree with you. I actually think a lot of the biggest, longest battles in Monster Hunter are battles of attrition in my brain where I'm ready to give up, but I think I'm going to kill him because I just am like, dude, this is really a lot of hammering, Yeah,
for sure.
What about you, Abzi?
In Monster Hunter, it's not that I was facing the dragon. I don't think it was Nergigante. It was the other one, the one that throws bombs down on you. And that's what happened. And I didn't know about that dragon, but I was fighting another boss. I was like, and then out of nowhere, that you hear that noise, what? And he's just throwing bombs down at you, and I'm like, what is going on? Yeah, that was a cool moment.
It's weird because I have a feeling we're gonna hang up, and then today my brain is going to explode with dragon battles. But right now I only remember a couple dragon battles. But I feel like there's
Dragon
a ton.
Age Inquisition had a lot of fun dragon fights as well, for me.
We need a gif of that.
I did think of Dragon Age Inquisition, I will tell you, though. It did pop up for a brief moment. But we'll move on. Guthrie says, is Forbidden West going to get lost in the game hype? I think we can all agree. Well, I don't want to speak for everybody else. I do think it will be. But what do you guys think for Forbidden West? Do you think it'll be lost in Dragon's Dogma and Rise of the Ronin?
No. I mean, it might get lost in everything, but also its own sort of PS5 remake with Ghost of Tsushima, I think, potentially as well.
Where people are already looking forward to Ghost versus...
Yeah.
That's fair. That is fair. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I think it hits a bit more of a niche demographic with
The
like the
cave
futuristic...
woman, futuristic neon dinosaur.
Yeah, it's kind of
niche.
a weird overlap where it would appeal to
I love that.
more like the... what's the game you talked about that you reviewed recently? Outcast?
Yeah, the
It's
open
like the more
world,
like
third-person,
alien-y,
generic.
futuristic. Yes, I think it's a bit of maybe a different crew for that one. By the way,
So
just
good
on
looking,
dragons, I think Midir from Dark Souls 3, he was in one of the DLCs. He was a really cool looking dragon, and I remember finding him many times to actually kill him eventually, but actually enjoying the fight too. So that's
Dark Souls 3 is no, it's not unappreciated. Obviously, we talk about it, but I think
still
think it's a insanely
solid,
good Dark Souls game.
Yeah,
if not my
agreed.
favorite.
It's my favorite From Software game, probably.
I think it.
Yeah.
Well, I think I like Elden Ring better, but I think I agree with you. It's like it's up there, man.
Like
it's
to
up
use
there.
your expression, as a package,
Yeah,
it's
as
just
a package.
a banger. Something, yeah.
That's you should never be known for a saying, because it almost always means that your brain is actually using it in replacement of But I do really mean as a package, like because you contain every bit together.
I know exactly what you mean.
But
yeah,
it does sound like a that's just using different words. Abzi, do you have any there we go with the oh sorry, no, we already answered that. So do you think it'll be lost then, Abzi? Do you think Forbidden West
I don't know,
will be lost?
because I feel like first of all, a lot of PC players loved the first one, the first Horizon.
That's true.
And also a lot of, I know, even if people own PS5s, there's a lot of people that, didn't get it yet because they were waiting for a PC port, because they just feel more comfortable with mouse and keyboard, me included. Like I did get it on PS5, but I think I'm actually going to play it when it comes to PC. I think it probably might not be lost, but it might be held off until they're done with other games, or
and then come back on a sale, potentially.
Yeah.
Can I just point out, too, that this is just me saying this, not what I said today, but what I saw in the last 2 or 3 days, that the Rise of Ronin previews have probably helped Horizon get a bit of an audience, because they didn't hit with the same resonance that a Ghost of Tsushima's glowing previews did. And I think that I've already seen some people going, oh, not that they're mad or anything, but they're like, oh, maybe I will skew towards Horizon and sort of wait out Rise and see if there's some things I'll dislike once people are able to talk about it. That's one big problem with previews, guys. You can't talk about like half the stuff that might actually appease a gamer who's listening. Go, oh, okay, I get what he's saying, but I'm still okay with it. You're not even allowed to talk about half the shit. So next up, Sojourner says, do you have any 1 in a million game moments? So this, by the way, we're going to wrap this up. This meaning, have you guys ever not tried to do something, but a random thing that happened that was like...
Yeah, it was in Monster Hunter, actually. And it was me and my friend. And it was just a fucking hilarious moment that I will never forget, and we never could really replicate, because it's not funny if you replicate, and it's not even that funny if I talk about it, because it's just happening in the moment where we were fighting I forgot, the T-Rex looking guy, and and I look behind, I ran away to heal, right? And I look behind, and he's just walking, and he's trying to heal too, and then he goes cheers, because we're about to drink the healing potion. He's like, cheers. And as soon as he said cheers, the guy whips his tail and just shoots us across the map. and
no, that actually is funny, because I know I can see that happening in the game. That's awesome. Johnny, do you have any 1 in a million, some random thing happening? It's hard to remember these.
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint one.
If you don't have one, it's fine.
I have have one. In the meantime,
Go for
it's one my friends and I continue to talk about, like 25 years later, from Aliens versus Rebellion's 1999, Aliens versus Predator. We talked about we used to go to LAN cafes and play a lot, and that was also one of the games we played, where we played the survival mode, which was basically a horde mode where you played as colonial marines fighting against infinitely spawning waves of aliens. And so on one of those levels, like we're running around, and I have the pulse rifle, and I fire a grenade at a huge Praetorian-like alien. And just as I fire the grenade, there's another alien that comes off from off screen, pounces right across, then gets hit by the grenade, sacrifices itself for the Praetorian, and then sprays acid blood all over me, killing me in the process. And we just we laughed for like 30 minutes at that. Yeah. And we've talked about that moment for like, because it's like it is literally one of those 1 in a million. Like, what are the odds? It's just literally pouncing in from like way off screen just to take the bullet for its Praetorian and kill me in the process. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
I'm trying to think. I'm sure
fun. It's because we have lots of small moments.
Yeah, there's lots of small moments I don't really have. I definitely had the thing where you get ready to do that grenade in a busy environment, and that guy, one of your friends, comes in and you go boom, boom, and it goes off his head or whatever. You're like, oh shit, and just team wipe or something. But yeah, I
had a funny one where I was trying to toss a grenade. This is Helldivers 2, where into the hole, where like you toss a grenade in and you seal the bug hole.
Yeah.
But it bounced on the edge.
Yeah.
And it bounced off to my friend and of course exploded on her face. So that was a fun, maybe not funny for her in the moment, it took a bit for her. For her to see the fun. Yeah.
Friendly fire is awesome in games, man. They should just always
I think it's fire enabled. It's a whole layer to it.
It's also why I refuse in any game to use instant hit explosive grenades. I like bouncing.
Yeah, the impact grenades.
Dude,
oh my god.
I hate throwing it and having it blow right away. I want the danger. It's so weird, but I'll see like two types of explosives, and if one is throw it and it blows up right away, even those are better because obviously because it's like a gun. I will never choose that thing. I want the one that I can bounce around a wall, and you get that amazing kill, or your friend goes in and you're like, dude, don't go, boom. Yeah. I dev guy exploded on her face. Okay, Johnny.
No, not like that.
I knew it right away, but you figure it's a dev guy. You got to give him one per podcast, right? Yeah, I'm sure there's been something. There's been a couple in reviews where I know that there's something has happened. I still remember glitching out in one of the Forza games and getting a race time. It was a loop game, and I don't know what happened, or it was a loop track, and I remember I got 0.01 milliseconds for the race, and I was on the leaderboard for like 9 years until they figured out that it was a glitch. But I just drove and went to the left, and it was like, congratulations. I was like, whoa.
I can imagine your friends seeing that, like Cadiz looking at that, like, how the fuck it did.
I will say those are the fun parts, though. It's not the 1 in a million. It's where, like, something like that, where you have a friend who sees your time or whatever, and they're like, I'm going to go after that time. And finding out, behind the scenes, where I'm like, what are you doing? Nothing. And I can see an Xbox, he's on Forza. I'll be like, I haven't seen him on Forza. Oh, he saw my time. And then he'll beat the time, and then you go beat that. That kind of stuff is like, that is sort of 1 in a million because the interaction is just, it's so phenomenal. That'll be it for us. Let me check real quick to make sure that I got all of them. There's a last one. Do you guys have a favorite anime or cartoon? And then we'll wrap it up.
Death Note.
Okay.
Like a movie or a show?
It can be. I changed it. He said anime, but since I'm not an anime fan, it didn't make a lot of sense. So I just said anime, cartoon. It has to be it can't be live action.
Maybe Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood or Akira.
It's a good one.
Akira's pretty crazy when you're a kid. Yeah. When you first see Akira and people's heads are exploding into tomato sauce, and you're like, whoa. Yeah, Akira's crazy. Does Akira hold up? Don't answer. I don't mean
Yeah,
hold
there
up
is a
as in
4K.
it's a classic. Okay, that's what I was gonna say. Is there like a cleaned up version?
Yes.
Primal Plague Soul says. I
There's
know.
a 4K
I know
version
Silver
with
like
Dolby
Primal too.
Atmos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
Primal a lot.
Do you have
I
one? Silver?
think. Yeah, I mean, I grew up with one. Like a lot of kids in Scandinavia or the Nordic countries in the late '80s, early '90s. Silver Fang, which is about a a bear dog, a dog used for hunting bears in Japan. Basically going on a revenge quest to avenge the death of its father, who was murdered by the one-eyed insane bear Akakabuto. Which is just like one of the most horrifying nightmare creatures that's ever been put to anime for kids television. But intensely violent show, but also just and like doesn't quite hold up animation wise today. It has some fairly cheap animation, but just overall in terms of themes stuff, it stayed with me over the years since it made a very deep impression on me as a kid and has sort of retained that over the years.
That's the same answer, not the same answer, but the same reason for me is Secret of Nim. Like Secret of Nim's held up.
Yeah, Don Bluth.
Fucking yeah, Don Bluth. It's held up for ages, and it probably spurned my like for fantasy and the idea that like creatures, Watership Down or whatever, that like creatures can be, humans and little fantasy worlds that exist. But yeah, that's mine. All right, everybody, thank you very much for watching the podcast. If you get a chance, I would love for you to go to iTunes or Spotify and review right now. Later, we'll start giving out stuff for reviews. If you give a review, I don't have the time to do that, but I appreciate if you guys do. It does help the channel. That'll be it for us. Other than Johnny telling us what he's streaming tomorrow on Saturday.
So I'm doing map exploration, like side quests in Rebirth. That's been like my stream activity where I'm just exploring and doing all the side stuff on stream, so people can tune in and not like be spoiled over the story and stuff like that.
That's cool. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. So he'll be doing that tomorrow on Johnny Plays Live. That'll be it for us. Thank you everybody for watching. Appreciate you as always. And by the way, it's Friday.